Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. It's great to see you guys again. I haven't seen you since the end of the 2026 NFL draft streams that we did here over the weekend. We got a lot of Steelers football to talk about with you guys here today. First up, the latest Steelers news and rumors. Mike McCarthy doubled down on his support for quarterback Will Howard, despite drafting Drew Allar in round 3. What's all that about? Also, I thought Colin Cowherd had a very interesting take on Steelers quarterback, or I guess free agent quarterback at this point, Aaron Rodgers. I'll be breaking that down in our first segment today. Then we'll get into our list of post-draft cut and trade candidates, guys that I think could surprisingly be cut from the Steelers roster before the start of the season. And then we'll get into a pretty interesting game here that I'm going to play with you guys here regarding Drew Allar that I think is going to completely blow your guys' brains out. Okay, I think it's going to be unbelievable. I think it's going to be something that, maybe if you're not the biggest Drew Allar guy, you're going to, by the end of this live show, maybe think that he's got a chance to develop into a pretty darn good starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers down the road here. And then, of course, we get to your questions, all right? If you guys want to get your question on the mailbag here today, the real ones know what to do. You guys can use hashtag Steelers down there in the live chat room, or you guys can super chat to guarantee your question gets on the live show this week. So greatly appreciate your guys' support. Get those questions down there, and I'm happy to answer on any topics, any questions on the draft picks or the UDFAs that the Steelers signed here over the last several days. If you've got questions about Aaron Rodgers, Will Howard, Drew Allar, the new coaching staff, the new schemes that they're going to be running, I'm happy to answer any and all questions surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers here because this will be our only live show of the week, just so you guys know. But before we get into the content today, I want you guys to let me know, who are the sickos down there in the comment section? We already have over 200 people watching live around the world. If you're joining us today, that means that you're a real one. Let me know who the real ones are down there in the comment section by spamming those me's. Also, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon. It really does help out the channel. It helps the YouTube algorithm kind of identify this as a show that a lot of people are watching and a lot of people are enjoying. So if you enjoy our content, you want to help us out today, at the top of today's show, click that thumbs up icon, and now get those me's in the chat. We got Wayne, we got Most Likely, we've got Javon, we got Kevin, we got Dave, we got Eugene, we got Mr. Deadhead, we got Czar Craig. We got a bunch of people in the chat today. I love it. We got Kevin, Shane. We've got my lovely fiance Cassie Voth is joining us. We got Captain. We got M3, Justin Watson. What's up, Justin? Good to see you, man. We got The Only Key. We got O-Dubs. We got Shaq. We've got Fluffy. We've got Gen05. We've got The Only Key, Fluffy, Cameron, Matthew, Zyler, Zach, Gen05. We've got Tremaine. Got a good crew of sickos ready to get things going, man. And then also I want to let you guys know that if you guys want to skip the line and get your question answered first, you guys can send in a donation via Venmo or PayPal. YouTube takes a 30% cut and Apple takes another 10% cut of all the super chats you send in here in this chat room. So if you guys want to get more of your donation dollars back to us here at Steelers Talk instead of to Apple and Google, you guys can send in your donations via Venmo or PayPal. And also, if you do that, we'll make sure to answer your question first, and it skips all the super chats. So at Jack-Sperry on Venmo, at Captain Jackrabbit on PayPal. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. Now, before we get into our first segment today, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor here, which is Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. With playoff basketball finally here, there's no better time to cash in during the playoffs this year. The app is super easy to use. Just pick more than or less than on a few player stat projections and then lock in your lineup. If you're a hoops guy, you can go with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, or three-pointers. And if you're more of a seam head and you like baseball, you can choose hits, home runs, or strikeouts. You can even look ahead to next year's football season, where I've got this projection here where I've taken the more on receiving touchdowns for Puka Nacua, the more on passing yards for Dak Prescott and Caleb Williams. You put in $20, you could win $120 if you get all three correct in a power play. So one thing I love about the Prize Picks app is the new social feeds feature, where you can share Prize Picks lineups with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at @CSperry to see all of my lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code HMA. That's a new code, guys, HMA, when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups. There's a link down there in the comments and description for you guys to click if you want to download the app today. And a big thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring Steelers Talk Live. And welcome in, Ponzi. It's great to see you, my friend.
Always great to be here. Bright and early today, really.
Yeah, bright and early. We're live a little bit earlier than we usually are, but we're trying to get our weekend started maybe a little bit early. Ponzi and I both have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off because we were working all weekend last weekend.
Giving you guys
obviously.
content, man.
So we've been really we've been kind of going crazy. We've rested up a little bit. I've gotten some sleep. Have you gotten some sleep here?
Well, unfortunately, my favorite baseball team plays on the West Coast, so
yeah,
not much.
No, fair enough. But that's of your own volition.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your own choice. So Bernard, my guy, coming in with a 5 here, says Mike Florio thinks Big Mike doesn't want Aaron Rodgers back, and the tender is something to piss him off and make him leave. Mike Florio is the ultimate conspiracy theorist in NFL media, especially when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Mike Florio thinks that everybody feels about Rodgers the way that he feels about Aaron Rodgers, so he's just projecting his feelings about Rodgers onto Mike McCarthy. It's pretty obvious that Big Mike wants Aaron Rodgers back. The tender is just something where, like, on the 5% or less chance Aaron Rodgers ends up signing with another team, instead of the Steelers, then they get a comp pick for it. And frankly, like, if the Steelers didn't do this, they'd be getting ripped for it because if Rodgers decided to go to another team, they could have had a comp pick, but they ended up getting nothing, right? So they would have said, oh, the Steelers is hubris and all this different stuff. Like, no matter what the Steelers do, they're going to get absolutely blasted for it when they're still pursuing Aaron Rodgers. The only thing that will satisfy these people is if they tell Aaron Rodgers to go fuck himself, and that's just not going to happen at this point. I don't know what to tell you guys. It's not happening. They want Rodgers. The players want Rodgers back. It's not just the front office and the coaching staff. The players want him back as well. And frankly, I think he gives us the best. I think he's the best solution at the quarterback position this year for the short term and the long term. All right, now you might be saying, but Jack, he's going to be 43 years old. How could he be the best long-term solution for this quarterback room? It's because of the mentorship that he provides for the younger guys, especially Drew Allar, who really needs a year to sit and learn and develop. And if he can have, maybe the world's leading expert in how to play quarterback in a Mike McCarthy offense on the planet right now, in Aaron Rodgers there to help, teach him how to do the job in the right way, I mean, that's only going to increase Drew Allar's chances of actually becoming this team's franchise quarterback down the road. And, I don't think you draft Drew Allar with the expectation that he's going to be able to play and play well right away. I think you draft him to sit him, stash him, develop him behind a veteran like Aaron Rodgers, where he can hopefully develop his footwork, which needs a lot of retooling, and really get the most out of that awesome physical skill set and that arm talent he's bringing to the table. And if Aaron Rodgers can teach him how to decipher defenses and how to process pre and post snap information and kind of learn how the game that he, the way that he kind of plays the game. I think that can only mean good things for Drew. In fact, if you have the opportunity to provide that for Drew and you say, no thanks, we want to go with Will Howard as our starting quarterback this year instead, I mean, I think that's malpractice. I think I think at that point, like, you don't have Drew Allar's best interest in mind. If that's the strategy you go down. If you want Drew Allar to have the best chance of success, you give him a year to sit and develop, and you give him Aaron Rodgers as a mentor. If you decide, we got to draft a quarterback in 2027, so we got to see if Drew Allar's good right now, so we got to play Drew Allar before he's ready, you don't have his best interest at heart, okay? All you're focusing on is 2027. You're not living in the now. That's how bad football teams manage their quarterback situation. Just go ask the Browns and the Jets, who have had all these young quarterbacks that they've thrown out there before they're ready, and they don't pan out. And
I would even argue a team like the Colts, who threw out Anthony Richardson, who's kind of that project QB, although a little more highly touted. It's just like
he played before he was ready.
Exactly, he played before he was ready. These guys need time. Like, the NFL or the college football to NFL transition is just a tough one, and like asking any quarterback to do that. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see guys that are sure bets, quote unquote, like Fernando Mendoza struggle this year. Like, it's just that much of a difference in the league. And I think, overall, regarding the tender part of this super chat from Bernard, it's just like Jerry Dulac said, it was kind of like a conversation brought up to the agent. They were like, okay, whatever, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean,
and that was the conversation.
Well, listen, like, people talk about, it like constricts Aaron Rodgers and he's not going to like it. It doesn't really constrict him. He can still sign with any team that he wants to. It's just the Steelers will get a comp pick for it if he does sign with another team. And, like, the only time where he can't sign with another team is if we get to July 22nd, which is 3 months away. All right, if Aaron Rodgers wants to go to another team, He can do it. It's just if he does, the Steelers are going to get a comp pick for it. And then also, like people are like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is not going to like that he's only going to be making $15.5 million. Well, he made less than that last year. Obviously, this tender means it's a 10% raise if he signs it. And then if they want, they can rip up the tender and pay him more or even less if he wants to. This is not something that is putting any sort of constraints on Aaron Rodgers. It's just the Steelers being smart and saying if he decides to go somewhere else, wherever that would end up being, we're going to get a comp pick for it instead of getting nothing. And it's not a likely scenario. They're just covering their bases. And if things do go haywire, then they're going to be compensated for it. That's all it is. It's
a non-story.
It really is a non-story. And a lot of people are like, oh, Rodgers is going to be so upset by this. I don't think he gives two shits about it, if I'm being completely honest, guys. Next super chat coming in from, once again, Bernard says, Florio thinks A-Rod will have a big impact in the locker room and will undermine Big Mike. And Jesus Christ, like this is the same thing.
Florio propaganda.
This is the same thing that Aaron Glenn said to Rodgers in their meeting last year, where he's like, oh, I don't want to be in front of the room, and then people are looking back at you. And Rodgers was like very offended by that because I think you can ask Mike Tomlin. You can ask anyone in that building last year. He was not undermining anything Coach T was saying. This is not like the caricature that people think Aaron Rodgers is. That's not who he is, all right? Like, is he quirky? You know, has he been perfect in the way that he's handled situations in his life at times? No. All right? And he certainly does things his own way. But is he like this conniving, scheming, terrible person that's like, don't listen to the head coach, listen to me? Like, no, that's not who Aaron Rodgers is. And Mike Florio hates him, so I can't say I'm surprised that, he's talking about him in that way. But when Aaron Rodgers says that people in the media talk bullshit about him, Mike Florio is the example he's talking about because he's talking out of his ass. $2 from Justin Watson, my man here. Says, always appreciate the interactions and shout-outs. I appreciate you, Justin. $5 from Bernard again. Says, Booger McFarland thinks with A-Rod, the team will go 9-8. Oh, yeah, we went 10-7 last year with the worst team, worst coaching. But, yeah, we're going to be worse this year with the same starting quarterback, even though everything around him is better. Great thinking, Booger. And he says they get what they deserve for waiting on him. Said A-Rod is 42 and doesn't want to get hit. I think that's one of the most false narratives about Rodgers, man. Like, you watch some of the hits that he took last year, you tell me he doesn't want to get hit. All right, he took some massive shots last year. He ended up getting injured because he took a huge shot last year. Like, I don't know what to tell people, man. Like, he stands in that pocket. Does he get rid of it quickly? Sure. But I think a lot of that had to do with he knew nobody was going to be open down the field. Like he confirmed pre-snap that with the coverage that the defense was running and the play and the personnel that was on the field, there was a very low chance there's going to be somebody open down the field. So he wanted to get the ball quickly out to his guys out in space, and that was the smart way to play. But now that we've got better wide receivers this year, I think Rodgers is going to be much more aggressive. He's going to be holding the ball a little bit longer, and he's going to be throwing the ball down the field as a result because it's more of a strength of this year's personnel. Last year, you didn't have the wide receivers or the receivers in the tight end room to get the job done throwing the ball down the field as much as everyone thinks that he should have, right? But like, what'd you want to do? Throw it up to a double-covered DK Metcalf, to a 5'8" Calvin Austin III, to
50-year-old Adam Thielen,
to Roman Wilson, who didn't know how to run his routes with the correct timing on the outside because he's a slot receiver that Mike Tomlin decided was going to play on the outside. Like Jonnu Smith, who was essentially a dead body out there that couldn't create any separation. Like, where did you want Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball down the field? It was smarter to dump it off to Darnell Washington, who was an excellent yak threat, to get a quick screen out to DK Metcalf and let him use his legs. It was smarter to get it out to Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell and let them make people miss and get the yak. There's a reason why this Steelers offense had the most yak in the NFL over the last 10 years, okay? Like, it's because Aaron Rodgers was smart with getting the ball in the correct places, which last year included a lot of short passes. This year, with Jeremy Bernard being added, really good route runner. Michael Pittman Jr., excellent hands, and a crafty route runner as well. You still got DK. Pat Freiermuth is going to be used more. Still got Darnell Washington. I think Roman Wilson's going to play a lot better when he's actually allowed to play in the slot this year. I don't think he's a starter, but I think that he's going to be a solid piece that they can use in certain formations and certain concepts. Like, this offense is just way better than it was last year around Rodgers, so I don't understand where this thinking is that this team, I heard last year, they're going to go 6 wins, they're going to go 7 wins, they're going to be last place in the AFC North. I've heard it time and time and time again, and these people do not learn their lesson, okay? And I honestly think the Steelers this year will be better than they've been probably in any year over the last half decade or more. I think that this will be a very successful season. I guess we'll just have to see where everything goes, though. But we got a $2 Venmo here from my man O-Dubs. And he says, do the Steelers have any comp picks for the 2027 draft? I can't remember, honestly. I wish I had the answer in front of me here. Let's go 2027 comp picks. Let's just look it up real quick.
Because they were quite decently active in free agency.
Yeah, the Steelers picked up quite a few players, so I honestly don't think so. Let me see. Just a quick look up here. I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers compensatory picks. Let's get down here. No way. It cuts off at Philly. Oh, never mind. There's a second. Okay. It's not showing up on here, so I don't think so.
Because I think, Darnold Savage wouldn't count at this point.
I don't believe so, O-Dubs. That's the best answer that I can give you because they did bring in multiple players. Let's go Steelers. Let's just look it up, Steelers in particular. Yeah, so as of April 2026, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not currently projected to receive any comp picks in the 2027 NFL Draft. Now, they might be getting some extra picks because if Mike Tomlin comes back to coaching, you could be looking at a Sean Payton-esque deal here where they could get an additional first-round pick. Because you look at the deal that the New Orleans Saints got from the Broncos to get Sean Payton, it was a first-round pick in 2023, followed by a second-round pick the following year. I would take this.
All right, in a heartbeat.
This is the starting point in negotiations for me because guess what? Mike Tomlin's career resume is actually better than Sean Payton's was at that point. If you just want to talk purely wins and losses, if you want to talk about the amount of Super Bowls, obviously they both have one, and they both had one at this point in their careers, and they still do. I think with Mike Tomlin, with his pedigree, with 19 straight non-losing seasons, he's never had a losing season in almost 2 decades as a head coach. There's a lot of teams that have had a ton of losing seasons that would absolutely pay a first and second round pick to get that kind of stabilizing presence in their building. Now, obviously, as we know, we're Steelers fans, we know that Mike Tomlin's not a perfect head coach. And, he comes with his set of problems as well, especially if he's not going to be adjusting his coaching style, his schemes, and stuff like that to the new team he goes to. But there's a lot of teams out there, man, that I think would give up a first and second round pick for him.
I mean, hell, the Giants gave John Harbaugh all that money.
Exactly. So if you can add an additional first round pick next year, next year's draft is loaded. So that would be absolutely excellent. $5 here from Bernard says, are the Steelers mad at Aaron Rodgers for moving timeline back, and that's why they did this to force his hand? No, they didn't do anything to force his hand because he can still sign with another team. He can still retire. There's nothing to force his hand right now. That's what people are misunderstanding about this. But I don't think Rodgers is mad at it at all. I don't think it's the Steelers mad at Rodgers at all. I think it's just, okay, the deadline to do this tender and get a comp pick for him if he goes somewhere else expired on Monday. We got to pull the trigger on it, or else if he goes somewhere else and things go haywire, even if it's on an unlikely situation, we get a comp pick for it. At least we get something for it if things go haywire here. We don't think they're going to, but if they do, on the 5% or less chance it does, then we're going to get compensated for it. That's all this is. It has nothing to do with, the Steelers are mad at Rodgers or Rodgers is mad at the Steelers now. That's not what's going on right now. People are making way too big of a deal of this than it actually is. $5 from Marco Man says, where would you rank out wide receiver trio amongst the AFC? I think it's 3rd overall behind the Broncos and Bengals, maybe the Jags, depending on Travis's situation. Travis is playing full-time corner this year, I believe is what they've said, and he's going to come in certain situations. So I wouldn't necessarily say Travis is a receiver for them. Listen, man, I'd have to go through the teams, but, the Steelers have a pretty darn good one, all right? It's definitely good enough for Aaron Rodgers to have enough weapons to throw the ball downfield more often this year. without a question, in my opinion. So, I think you can compare and contrast all day long. I'd have to sit down and go through every team in their wide receiver room to tell you exactly how many teams, I think the Steelers are better at. But I think what's important is we actually have a good one this year, and that's what matters to me. $5 from Bernard says people are mad that the Steelers are this desperate for a 43-year-old quarterback that's past his prime. I mean, just because someone's past their prime doesn't mean they're still not an adequate quarterback. Like, Rodgers is absolutely still an adequate quarterback. I mean, it feels like me and Colin Cowherd, of all people, are the only ones pointing this out. But, like, Aaron Rodgers had better numbers last year than Baker Mayfield. And he had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka.
Well, most of those guys were injured to begin.
Well, I know those, but they were injured at different times, right?
Yeah.
And, like...
Still way better.
But, like, people love Baker Mayfield. People put him in the top 10 of their quarterback rankings, and they love him. I have Steelers fans saying, I would love to have Baker Mayfield. Well, Aaron Rodgers, with a bottom 3 wide receiver room, had a better passer rating than him last year. Like, he had more. They were around the same in terms of yards per attempt. They were around the same in big-time throw percentage. Baker had almost double the turnover-worthy play percentage Rodgers had last year. So Rodgers was far from a bad quarterback last year. He had a bad wide receiver room, which limited and put a cap on how good the Steelers, especially passing offense, could be last year. They had to be a team that ran the football, that had short passes, relied on Yak because nobody could get open down the field, including DK Metcalf, because he would continuously get double teamed. So, like, I think you have to put things into the proper context. And Aaron Rodgers, sure, he's older, but he still has an incredible football mind, and he still has awesome arm talent. There's a reason why everybody in the Steelers locker room, even before free agency, at the end of the season, they could have told them, hey, Rodgers, was really limiting us this year. I want to go in a younger direction. Those meetings are confidential, all right? So it's not like it was going to hurt Aaron Rodgers' feelings or word was going to get back to Rodgers that Pat Freiermuth said he wanted the new quarterback. But no, everybody on both sides of the ball was like, we want Aaron Rodgers back. We think he's a good quarterback. And I don't think anyone in this chat would say the people in the Steelers locker room doesn't know football, that they don't know what good quarterback play looks like.
No, they clearly don't, Sperry.
Like, to me, that is one of the most... Like, if you're going to disagree with what the locker room wants, you got to have, like, a really good reason why, other than, he's 42 years old.
He's old. He's got to regress. He sucked last year.
Like, to me, man, like, there's two ways a quarterback can improve, okay, their production. The first way is they develop as a player in a vacuum. Now, that's usually reserved for quarterbacks that are younger. We're hoping Drew Allar does that in the years to come. We're hoping Will Howard does that in the years to come. The other way that quarterback production goes up and these quarterbacks play better is if the surrounding cast around them is better. And undeniably, the Steelers have done that this year. The wide receiver room has been fixed, in my opinion. You've still got a really good running back duo. I think you've got a really talented young offensive line to work with. You've got a really good pair of tight ends. You've got an upgraded offensive play caller, which, by the way, runs an offense that Aaron Rodgers is an expert in. Like, what's not to like? What are the better options out there that give this team a better chance this year? Will Howard, that's never played a live snap in the NFL? Drew Allar, who has major footwork issues and needs a year to sit and develop? What are we talking about here, guys? Aaron Rodgers clearly gives this team the best chance to compete this year. And even if we go 10-7 and are one and outed in the playoffs again, it's not a wasted season because Drew Allar got a year to sit and develop his fundamentals, and he got the opportunity to learn from Aaron Rodgers, who is the world's leading expert on how to play quarterback for Mike McCarthy. That is an invaluable resource for Drew Allar. So it's not a wasted season. If Rodgers comes back, this team goes 10-7, and we lose in the first round of the playoffs again. It's frustrating that it happens again, but at least you set up this quarterback room for future success down the road. I don't think that this is that complicated, Ponzi.
I would argue, it isn't at all. And, one of those things is that, like, the Rams, Matthew Stafford was still, great. MVP, won the MVP last year. One of the reasons why is because he had Devontae Adams. They, upgraded his cast. Cooper Kupp was their guy, but Devontae Adams stepped in, filled in really good, and honestly probably performed a little bit better in his last season than then. But, like, I really think if you're going to surround your older quarterback with weapons and, securing the offensive line, hell, they did exactly that. They got a wide receiver in the draft early. they secured offensive line with 2 potential future guys for not only Rodgers this year maybe, but in the years to come. I really do think they did a great job at, having that young talent still there while having veteran talent still fill up the roster.
100%. This is the way the Steelers do things, and this is why that they currently have the record for the most non-losing seasons in NFL history, with I think 23 consecutive
it's
non-losing seasons, is because they continuously have players on the roster that can help them win now, but they're always replenishing the positions on the roster for the future, and that's what they're still doing.
And they're building for the future with Drew Allar or Will Howard, whoever the case may be, or another young quarterback, to step in and seamlessly transition into a new era of Pittsburgh Steelers football.
Yes.
And I think,
this is what Green Bay does. This is what the Kansas City Chiefs did when they drafted Mahomes. And by the way, I'm not saying Drew Allar's going to be Mahomes. I'm just saying that this is the perfect situation for a developmental young quarterback like Drew Allar, who has a bunch of arm talent and a ton of upside, to walk into, to get an opportunity to learn from Aaron Rodgers for a year, to have the opportunity to sit down and sit the bench for a year and develop your footwork and really be ready for your opportunity when it comes. That is a blessing for Drew Allar. All right, and then in the meantime, you got Aaron Rodgers, who is going to have a better surrounding cast than he had last year, and he was already pretty darn good last year. He had a 95 passer rating last year. That's not bad. That's pretty darn good, and he did that with maybe the worst wide receiver room in football.
I got to say, guys, if you don't think Jeremy Bernard and, Michael Pittman aren't better than Calvin Austin and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Adam Thielen, those guys, I don't know what to tell you other than you may not know ball.
Jonnu Smith is gone.
Praise the Lord.
I just look around and everything looks better around Rodgers. So I don't understand why people think it's going to be the same exact story as it was last year. And by the way, last year wasn't that bad of a story. We won our first division championship in a half decade. We swept the Ravens.
And I would argue,
everything around this team is better this year. I don't understand why there's not more optimism around this. I really don't.
I would argue the biggest upgrade the Steelers made, other than the wide receiver room, was the schemes. You could argue having Mike McCarthy is a big upgrade in itself, but having Patrick Graham lead your defense into a new wave of not outdated schemes and updating your schemes finally for the first time, it's just a testament to how good this team was under Mike Tomlin, because of the fact that they never really got the coordinator hires right. But this should be a better football team than last year. If it isn't, we have a problem.
Yeah.
But that's just purely on paper. This should be a better.
By the way,
team.
if it's that bad at the end of the season, then you can start playing the younger guys.
Exactly.
If Allar's ready, play him.
I'd rather see Howard.
If he's not, then see Howard at the end of the year, right? That's just the way that it should work. But good luck trying to convince Cam Hayward, and I know he was praising Howard on Rich Eisen, but what is he going to do? Shit on the kid on national television? No. But try convincing Jalen Ramsey. Try convincing Cam Hayward. Try convincing T.J. Watt. These guys that are desperate to compete for Super Bowls at this point, that Will Howard in year one of his NFL career is going to deliver that for him. Good luck doing that. If you want to lose your locker room in year one, and you want to deny your young quarterback in Drew Allar an opportunity to learn from one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, by all means, tell Aaron Rodgers to go fuck himself. See how that works out this season.
Go get Russell Wilson.
Yeah, go get Russell Wilson. Go get somebody else. Go with Mason Rudolph as your week one starting quarterback. Let's see how that works out for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. It's not going to be good, man. And I just think that, especially because of the way that the season ended last year and how bad the offense looked, for some reason, people think that's how the offense played the entire season, and that's how Rodgers played the entire season, because they played the best defense in football with the lack of talent they had at the skill positions.
And
I
will say, the offense did enough to get by, and with the players they had on offense, that is a testament to how good Aaron Rodgers played.
Yes.
If you did good enough to get by, have an average NFL offense with what I saw, that was a miracle in its own right.
He was good last year.
Exactly.
I don't know what else to tell people, man. He played really smart football last year, and despite having, kind of being placed behind the 8 ball with the wide receiver room he was given. 24 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions, a 95 passer rating, over 100 passer rating in the red zone, delivering multiple game-winning drives with that terrible wide receiver room, including multiple against Baltimore in the season finale. We think Will Howard is going to do a better job than that this year?
He won a national championship.
I like Will as a person. We're going to talk about him here in a little bit. All right, and I like him as a player a little bit too. I don't think he's completely worthless as a quarterback prospect. But like, I think the Steelers need to be focusing on the here and now in the short term and trying to compete and win right now. But they also got to look towards the future and set these younger quarterbacks up for success. I think bringing back Rodgers does both of those things. And I don't know how you could look at it any other way. Like, what, you think it's better for Drew Allar if Aaron Rodgers isn't in the room this year to tell him how to, play quarterback in this system? Like, I don't get it. I just don't get why people think that that's better for these younger quarterbacks. But Mike Hoitzink here with a 5, so Mike H says, don't be surprised if Caden Weegan contributes to the wide receiver room more than most people are expecting. The guys at the Shrine Bowl found that out. Listen, man, Weegan was cooking people at the Shrine Bowl, man. Like, he's got a lot of quickness, and he explodes out of his breaks as a route runner. Wasn't really able to display that in college because Iowa never passes the football.
I mean, brother, they had terrible quarterbacks.
But I'm with you, Mike. I think that, Caden's going to be able to come in here and really surprise some people when we get into camp because he's kind of known as a punt return specialist only. But, man, some of the routes that he ran at Shrine Bowl practices this year were disgusting.
I can't remember what the quote is.
Roman Wilson better watch his back.
The special teams coordinator had, but, like, it was like he moves on grass, like, really smoothly, like he's, like, walking on the moon or something like that. It's, like, effortless for him. Like, cuts are effortless for him. And, that's good. Getting a kick returner like that, and, he won the best kick returner in college football twice in a row. That's pretty good. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good, man. All right. Well, we got Mexamander here with a 2. Says, no more Rodgers. Steelers drafted a new QB. Yeah, they drafted a QB that's not ready to play.
I'm not concerned about that. If they drafted, like, Carson Beck, maybe.
Or Ty Simpson, or Garrett Nussmeier. If you wanted somebody that was, quote-unquote, more ready to play and somebody that you wanted to see in year 1, don't draft Drew Allar, who has major footwork issues and needs a year to sit. It really comes down to that. If this Steelers organization looked at Drew Allar's film and said, this guy's ready to play NFL football on day 1, we got issues here with quarterback evaluation because that is not who he is. He's a guy that needs to really fix his footwork this year. That should be his focus. Get himself ready to play in the NFL by learning how to process NFL defenses. Really work on his individual work, and especially his footwork, so that he can play with rhythm and base and timing in the league because he's got all the physical tools to play at a super high level in this league, but he needs the time, all right? You can't just throw him out there or else you don't have his best interest in mind, in my opinion. $10 from Hunter Dillman says,
this is the one Mexamander. I put the other one on there.
Oh, okay. Says, no Super Bowl this year. This year is a rebuild year. Well, if it was a rebuild year, Mexamander, why did they trade for a 28-year-old receiver and give him a 3-year fucking extension?
It's rebuilding.
Is that a rebuilding move? What about retaining Patrick Queen and Jalen Ramsey, 2 older players? What about bringing Cam Hayward back at like a million years old? What about TJ Watt, keeping him on this roster? Are those rebuilding moves to you, my friend?
You want rebuilding moves, look at what the Jets did.
I mean, rebuilding is trading Jalen Ramsey away, trading Patrick Queen away, trading TJ Watt away.
Not trading for players.
Trading Cam Hayward away so he actually has a chance to win a Super Bowl. This is not a rebuilding season, whether Steelers fans want to rebuild or not. Mike McCarthy and Omar Khan have made it abundantly clear. We're not rebuilding. We're trying to win this year. And whether you think the Steelers can do that or not is irrelevant. The Steelers are trying to win this year. So if you're going to try and win this year, you might as well go with the quarterback that gives you the best chance at competing this year. And at this point, and frankly, I would have made this argument even before free agency, Aaron Rodgers gives you the best chance to do that. He's an expert in this offense. He has chemistry with multiple players in this offense already. All right, you added more weapons around him, so he's going to play better this year. He's got the playoff experience you need to go on a deep run in the playoffs. He obviously gives you the best short-term chance, and then also he gives you the added bonus of being an excellent mentor to get the future ready down the road. Drew Allar, like I mentioned, needs a year to sit and develop. Rodgers can provide that mentorship for him. Same thing with Will Howard. 2 years of mentorship from Aaron Rodgers could only mean good things for Will Howard down the road.
Like, I would have, a lot of people were like, oh, well, Howard's good. He's ready to go because Rodgers taught him all he needs to know. But, Howard hasn't even played yet.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him play.
We don't. Yeah,
there's no floor.
And he was a 6th-round pick, guys, as a national champion quarterback from The Ohio State University. like, for that to happen, you have to, like, these executives from all 32 teams had to have seen his film and said, yeah, we don't want that before round 6. Don't you think that's a little bit of a concern? Just a little bit?
Like, it's the same thing.
And I like Will. Like, I think he's got some sort of a chance here. And I think he's got good size, decent arm strength. He can throw the deep ball pretty nicely. He played awesome in the college football playoff. That's all great. But, like, you think Will Howard gives this team a better chance this year than Aaron Rodgers?
And this might piss...
Get out of here, man.
This might piss some fans off of what I'm about to say. But, like, if the Steelers and Mike McCarthy and Omar Khan really thought Will Howard could be the future, they wouldn't have drafted Drew Allar.
Yes.
That's my opinion. Because they would have waited for 2027, which is supposed to be a way better quarterback class, and they would have hey, we'll give Howard his shot to prove us wrong, that he can't be the future.
It's also worth noting McCarthy didn't draft Howard. Now he has drafted Allar. So
Exactly.
Allar's his guy.
Allar is his guy. He sees the upside, and I think all of us do see the upside in Allar. I understand the criticisms behind him, but that's why you draft a project in the 3rd round rather than the 1st.
Yeah, you don't draft a project in round 3 to play him right away. Like, that's
just bad football.
That's bad football roster management. That's a quick way to waste a season this year and then, starting over at the quarterback position next year. And I know everybody wants to draft a quarterback in round 1 next year, so that doesn't sound like such a bad result to some people. But I'm telling you, man, 3 and 4 win seasons, 5 win seasons, they're not fun. All right, I guarantee you're going to be wishing for that 10-7 in round 1 exit when we're a terrible football team.
Some of our other buddies
if we don't have a quarter. Just look at what the Minnesota Vikings dealt with last year. You want to go ask a Minnesota Vikings fan if going with the younger quarterback option that was completely unproven was a good idea for the franchise instead of going with Aaron Rodgers or instead of bringing back Sam Darnold? You want to ask the Vikings fan how last year went when they had Super Bowl expectations? It went terribly. And we have a chance to be this year's version of the Minnesota Vikings if the Steelers were to make that mistake. But thankfully for us, and thankfully for thankfully for us 6 months from now, I think the Steelers are making the correct decision by pursuing Aaron Rodgers.
And I really do think if you already know the floor of what you have in a quarterback is, which is Aaron Rodgers, which he led this team, looking for the pure roster perspective, this bad football team on offense, to average, to even above average in some metrics, you should bring back that quarterback and bring better weapons around him.
Yes. Like, if this team was 15th in points per game last year. That's above league average with the worst wide receiver room in the league. Now that they have Jeremy Bernard, now that they have Michael Pittman Jr., we think it's impossible that Rodgers is going to throw the ball downfield more. We think he's just not going to do it. We think that this can't potentially be a top 10 offense in football this year. I think it absolutely could. Mike McCarthy churns out top 10 offenses. This is what he does throughout his career, and he's got the talent to be able to have a top 10 offense this year. Why in the fuck would he prefer to go with 2 quarterbacks that have never played a live snap in the NFL this year when you've got like the world's leading expert in how to be quarterback in his offense sitting right there? And here's another thing, Ponzi. He's cheap. He's cheap. Like Baker Mayfield is going to cost like $36 million against the cap this year. Aaron Rodgers might be like 15.5.
At the most 20.
At the most 20. That is an absolute steal. An absolute steal.
For above average QB play, I'm getting that every single day. And I think, a lot of people have this misconception of, oh, well, get your young quarterback in a great situation like this. Well, if the young quarterback had never taken a snap before, I'm not going to put that young quarterback out there. I'm going to get a guy who I saw in this offense or a really different version of this offense behind Mike McCarthy, who is also evolved as a play caller. Why would I not get both of them and pair them back up together?
100%. And if it doesn't work out, and if Rodgers is not what I think he could be this year in year 2 with the better, and he's still, getting rid of the ball too quickly, and he's not throwing the ball downfield, and the offense is clearly limited this year, I will admit I was wrong. And obviously the team will be limited this year. And then, we move forward with a new starting quarterback in 2027, whether that's Allar, whether that's Howard. And that's the way we proceed. But it's still not a wasted season if that's the case, in my opinion, Ponzi, because you still give the younger quarterbacks the mentorship aspect of this with Aaron Rodgers in the building. If Rodgers isn't in the building, Drew Allar doesn't get the opportunity to learn from him, which is, I think, if you have Drew Allar's best interest in mind, if you knowingly deny him that opportunity, you don't have his best interest. Like that is like,
and let the boys have it in 2027.
Like you are doing him a disservice by making that decision if Steelers fans had their way. I just don't get it. Like I think that McCarthy and Omar and Arth and all these guys that are inside the Steelers locker room, they know what's up. They know Aaron Rodgers can help them win this year, and they know that he can help set their quarterback room up for success in the future. And that's why they're pursuing him this year, and that's why that's the smart decision. $10 from Hunter Dillman says, what's the long-term vision if Broderick rebounds and looks elite? Well, Max also looks great. How do the Steelers maximize all the offensive line talent if multiple young tackles prove starting caliber?
That's a good question.
It's a good question, Hunter. Here's what I think the answer is. I think they'll let Broderick Jones walk in free agency next year.
Get a good comp pick.
Because just assuming that you have Max Ahanicher and you've got Troy Fautano both playing at a high level as well, which is what I think you're asking here. If Broderick's like a really good starting left tackle by the end of this year, then I think you let him walk, and he's going to sign for a massive contract, and you get a comp pick. All right, and you still have two really good young offensive tackles to bookend your line, and you kind of move forward from there. So I think this is probably Broderick's last year here in Pittsburgh, unless they move him to guard, which is not impossible, but I think he's more of a tackle body type than a guard body type. He's more of an athlete, and he's got long limbs. Like I think he's just built to play tackle more than he is to play guard. But
correct me if I'm wrong. The Steelers got like a 3rd-round pick for a similar story. I can't remember from the Titans who signed that. I can't remember his name for some reason.
Dan Moore Jr.
Yeah,
Dan Moore
stunk.
Dan Moore Jr. stunk, and he got a big contract from Tennessee, and the Steelers got a really good comp pick this year out of that.
They got a 3rd.
Yeah. So, like, if Broderick goes and he signs somewhere for a huge deal and becomes the next left tackle of some other team, Steelers are going to get a 3rd-round pick for that, and they still have two really good offensive tackles on their rookie contracts still. So I think this is probably Broderick's last year, unless he somehow proves himself to be like this team's franchise left guard this year. But with Jennings Dunker being brought in, I think that he's going to be given every opportunity to be the future at that position. I think that there's a very high probability Broderick is not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler when we're sitting here next year. $5 from Kareem Richardson says we need to move on from as it shouldn't take this long to make a decision. And we had the same results with Russell Wilson.
No, we did not.
I think he's saying, we went 10-7 in round 1 exit with Russell Wilson.
Well,
who was better, Kareem? Who was better, Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? Was the defense better or worse with Aaron Rodgers last year? The defense around the quarterback was worse last year than it was for Russell Wilson, right? So I would argue was the number 1 receiver better for Russ or was it better for Rodgers? I think it was George Pickens, right? So I think if you're comparing Aaron Rodgers to Russell Wilson, Wilson took 1 million sacks. Rodgers got the ball out quickly, never took sacks really, and didn't turn the football over. Played really smart football, kept you in a lot of games that frankly you had no business being in, and he won you a lot of games late in the 4th quarter. And I know Russ did that as well. I think Russ was another example of the Steelers not surrounding him with the proper supporting cast, right? He was promised an excellent run game. He was promised an excellent wide receiver room to throw to, and he didn't get either of those things that year. The run game was was not great for the Steelers 2 seasons ago. And he took a lot of sacks. Rodgers fixed a lot of the issues Russ brought to the offense, and even though the result was the same, 10 wins, the offense was undeniably better last year with Aaron than it was with Russ. He took way less sacks. And, I think that especially now that I think Omar has actually delivered the surrounding cast that we've been hoping that he would deliver over the last several years on offense in particular, Aaron Rodgers is going to play even better than he did last year.
And if you need any example of that, look at the Ravens game in Week 18. They went blow for blow in a shootout with the Ravens in a game you got to have it. Pretty much a playoff game. And they went, bar for bar. Other people go, Tyler Loop missed a field goal. Chris Boswell missed the extra point right before.
Yep, so it would have been overtime.
It would have been overtime regardless.
If both kickers make their kicks, we go to overtime.
And, I think, that defense really was almost about to cost them the game.
Yes, this defense last year, it was fine. They had their moments last year on defense, but, it was not very good, right?
No.
So I'm hoping that this year, now that you have better coaching and you still have a lot of talent on that group, that Patrick Graham's going to get the most out of that group. And then Aaron Rodgers, who was like middle of the pack starting quarterback last year, at the very least, like a 95 passer rating is pretty fucking good for a guy that had the worst wide receiver room in the league last year, had over a 100 passer rating in the red zone, which is excellent. Like, you give him better weapons, you take Jonnu Smith, his worst weapon, away. Like, you add guys like Riley Nowakowski and Caden Weegan and Eli Heidenreich that can be like more specialty type of pieces as well. The Steelers have a lot to work with on offense this year in terms of weapons. So, like, I think Rodgers will play better this year than he did last year, and he wasn't bad last year. So I don't understand why, like, people don't think the wait is worth it. Like, if you didn't think the wait was worth it, you should have set the date at free agency and said, you have to give us an answer by free agency or we're going to go get somebody else. The Steelers didn't do that. So obviously the Steelers feel like that Rodgers gives them the best chance out of any of their options this year, and frankly, I agree with them. So is it worth the wait? Yes. If he signs in early June, he has 3 months to prepare for week 1. I'm pretty sure a guy that's already got a decade plus banked in a Mike McCarthy offense can be ready to go week 1 after signing in June. I understand why fans are frustrated because it's not what anybody else does, right? All the other quarterbacks sign in March, and Rodgers is being different, and people don't like that Rodgers has the freedom to do things differently. But guess who doesn't have an issue with it? The Pittsburgh Steelers, and they've been in constant communication with him. They know what his plans are in terms of making his final decision. They haven't gotten final confirmation yet, but they have a pretty good idea he's coming back. So I don't have an issue with it, if I'm being completely honest with you, Kareem. $2 from Trumper says, do you think that Eli Heidenreich will become RB1 this year? No. Eventually, I still doubt it, but I think he's going to make the team, and I think he's going to have a Swiss Army knife type of role. He's going to be somebody that can, play special teams, but he can also, go out there as like a versatile gadget type weapon that can line up in the backfield, also be a receiver. You can put him in the sniffer spot. He can do a lot of different things, man. I think he'll be a glue guy. I think that he'll be one of the fan favorites. But he's got a long way to go, man, before he proves to be the number 1 running back in this rotation. Now, before we get into our first segment here today, guys, fantastic super chats. I think we're already having a great conversation here. If you guys want to get your Jennings Dunker mugs that we have up on our website, the mullet mugs as we're calling them, they're $13.49 on our website, chatsports.com/mullet. Ponzi's putting that link down there in the comment section. So if you guys want to help support the show, we got the Steelers Talk logo on one side and then the beautiful ginger mullet and mustache combination on the other side. So if you guys want to help support the show here today and you want a cool mug to add to your collection, it's chatsports.com/mullet. Yes, we did. All right. So we're going to get into our first segment here. Keep those super chats coming. It's definitely a day where if you want to get on the mailbag, you're going to have to super chat. We already have a lot of super chat questions submitted. But we're going to get into our segments today. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, all right? The latest Steelers news and rumors. Then we'll get into our post-draft cut and trade candidates. And then we got a very interesting Drew Allar game that I've got for you guys here later in the show that might blow your mind. And then we'll get into your questions to finish up the show. So without further ado, let's get into our first segment of the day, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Welcome into Steelers Talk by Chat Sports, presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and on tonight's show, Mike McCarthy doubles down on his support for second-year quarterback Will Howard, despite drafting Drew Allar in the 3rd round of the NFL draft this year. Then also, Ben Roethlisberger has taken a side in the Howard versus Allar debate. And then also Colin Cowherd, I thought, gave a very interesting take on Aaron Rodgers on his show this week that I want to share with you guys, so make sure you guys stick around to see what that take is. But today is the final day of the month of April, and you guys have been awesome clicking that subscribe button, joining our family. We've added over 1,300 new people to our family here at Steelers Talk. But right now, we are 12 subscribers behind the Browns Report in our April sub battle here in the AFC North here at Chat Sports. The Browns Report has done a really good job here this month, but they have never beaten us in a month-long subscriber battle. I don't want that to start today, guys. If we can get 13 more subscribers today, we will officially pass them. So new viewers, we're counting on you guys, because if you've been watching our show here, you love the Pittsburgh Steelers and you like the content that we provide, but you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, your subscribe could help us get over the top here. So greatly appreciate your guys' support. And now let's get into the news and rumors of the day, starting with Mike McCarthy, who went on Pittsburgh radio today, and he claims that he is still very high on second-year quarterback out of Ohio State, Will Howard, and says that he will, quote-unquote, be a starter in this league someday. This is what McCarthy had to say. Will Howard is someone I'm extremely excited about. I think our time together, in the short time we've been together, shows that there's a lot there to work with, and I think he's definitely going to be a starter in this league. I'm just trying to have the best competitive quarterback room that we possibly can have. Now, the question here is, if Mike McCarthy is so excited about Will Howard and thinks that he's a future starter, why draft a quarterback in the top 100 of the NFL draft if you already feel like you have a future starter on the roster? Now, coming up here on Steelers Talk, I'm going to answer the question of, do I think Mike McCarthy is full of shit here when he praises Will Howard? Is this just trade bait to try and get a team to send a day 3 draft pick for Will Howard? Is it something else? Does he actually believe in Will Howard? I'm going to answer that question here in just a second, but first I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor here at Prize Picks, which is America's #1 sports picks app. With playoff basketball finally here, there's no better time to cash in with Prize Picks. The app is really easy to use. You just pick more than or less than on a few player stat projections, then lock in your lineup. If you're a hoops guy, you can go with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, or three-pointers. If you're more of a seam head, you can choose hits, home runs, or strikeouts. You can even look ahead to next year's football season here. I've got this projection taking the more on receiving touchdowns for Puka Nacua and the more on passing yards for Dak Prescott and Caleb Williams. But one thing that I love about the Prize Picks app, guys, that I can't recommend more is the social feeds feature that they have, where you can share Prize Picks lineups with your friends and copy those lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app as well, at C. Sperry, to see all of my lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get $50 in additional lineups with Prize Picks. Download click the link in the comments and description to download the app. And a big thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Now, when it comes to Mike McCarthy saying that he still really likes Will Howard despite drafting Drew Allar in the 3rd round this year, I really think Mike wants a true competition in this room moving forward. And I think he truly does and genuinely does like both Will Howard and Drew Allar, and thinks that they both have starter level upside in this league, and both have physical tools that are attractive to him that can be developed into eventually a future starter here in the National Football League and for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And having them compete against each other for that future QB1 job will bring out the best in both of them here as we approach the 2026 season. However, Howard is going to have to clearly be better than Allar to win the job, just because of the level of investment that they have put into Allar, a top 100 pick, nearly a top 75 pick. He was picked number 76 this year, and Will Howard is a 6th-round pick. And whether fans or anybody else likes it or not, teams are going to give more opportunities to the guys that they've invested more into compared to the other guys that maybe they don't have as much investment in. So if it's even between Will Howard and Drew Allar, Drew Allar's going to get the opportunity. So Will Howard's going to just have to be clearly better than Drew Allar if he wants an opportunity to play, which is why I think if I'm Will Howard, I think that my best chance to play and to prove myself as the future franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers is this year, and the only way I can really reliably get on the field to get my shot and prove what I can do is if Aaron Rodgers retires, okay? And the reason why I think Howard would have the best chance to prove this this year if Rodgers retires is because I think he's more ready to play in an NFL game right now than Drew Allar is. Allar is somebody that's, in my opinion, a developmental type guy that has some pretty significant footwork stuff that he needs to iron out, and I don't think it's fair to him to throw him into the fire week 1. With him having to make that full transition from college football to pro football and have to fix his entire footwork in one offseason, that is a lot to ask of a rookie quarterback. So I think if Rodgers retires, I think Will Howard might have the best chance to be this team's week 1 starting quarterback. But by this time next year, and after Drew Allar's had a year to develop his footwork and get better in that regard and learn how to play within rhythm and with proper timing inside this West Coast system, and then also he's had a year to learn from presumably Aaron Rodgers if he's back. Like, I think by this time next year, Allar has a very good chance of passing up Will Howard and being the better option for the Steelers going into the 2027 NFL season if they're not going to draft a quarterback early on in next year's NFL draft. Now, in terms of Big Ben Roethlisberger, of course, this team's previous franchise quarterback, who he wants to be the next quarterback here in Pittsburgh, he's firmly in the Team Howard camp here. This is what Roethlisberger had to say on his podcast this week. I didn't watch a lot of Penn State games. When I did watch, he never jumped off the page to me. Is he big? Can he move? Can he throw? Yeah, but there was never a time where I was like, whoa, I think this will push Will. When I watch his tape or if I watch games, Will Howard jumped off the tape to me way more than Drew Allar did. Now, I just think Ben needs to be watching more Drew Allar tape, because if there's anything that Drew Allar does at a really, really high level, it's those wow throws. It's those crazy off-platform, sidearm, crazy deep touch throws that he was able to pull off at Penn State. Like, if there's anything that Drew Allar, brings to the table here, it's that wow factor. And a lot of the wow plays, in my opinion, from Will Howard were more derived of, you've got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka, and they're making a fantastic play for you. Whereas Allar's was like, he never had the help around him that Howard did at Ohio State, and he's making it happen, right? So now, to be fair, I don't think Ben really watches film on these guys, right? For somebody like me, where it's my full-time job and I get paid a pretty decent living, to watch the film on these guys, to really be an expert on their film and all that different stuff, it's different than what Big Ben Roethlisberger's asked to do. Like, he doesn't, like, he even admitted it. He hasn't watched Drew Allar's film, so I don't know why he's kind of like, sharing an authoritative opinion on it if he hasn't watched a lot of Drew Allar. But listen, man, like, Will Howard, I think probably more ready to play going into 2026, but I think Drew Allar pretty undeniably has more of those wow throws and more of that wow factor to his profile. And I think if you give Drew Allar some time, I think he'll end up being the better option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But who's the guy? Let me know down there in the comment section who is going to win this quarterback battle between Drew Allar and Will Howard at the end of the day. Or if you think neither of them win it and you think they draft a quarterback next year and they move off of both of these guys in the near future, type N for me down there in the comment section. But if you think it's Allar, give me a DA. If you think it's Will Howard, give me a WH. Now we'll shift our focus here to the other potential quarterback that's going to be here in Pittsburgh next year, Aaron Rodgers. We're calling Cowherd, calling Aaron Rodgers the most underpaid player in the National Football League by far right now, and that he thinks Steelers fans should be very grateful to have Aaron Rodgers at the price tag that they're able to get him at. This is what Cowherd had to say on his show a few days ago. Go look at Aaron's numbers last season. They were frankly all things considered in a defensive culture. They were excellent. He had a 95 passer rating, 102 in the red zone, 24 touchdowns, 7 picks. They were a great red zone team. They didn't have great red zone personnel. He made them a great red zone team. Those are better numbers than Baker Mayfield. And Aaron got his team into the playoffs. Baker didn't. And Baker Mayfield has a team-friendly deal in Tampa at $35 million. Baker's deal, that's a team-friendly deal. And Aaron makes less than a third of Baker Mayfield last year and had better numbers. So just to give you some sense of how little money Aaron made last year and how little money he's going to make this year relative to quarterbacks, hell, relative to the guys I've never heard of. His cap hit wasn't as high as Lloyd Cushenberry III's last year, who I thought got knighted in the 17th century. He had a higher cap hit than Aaron Rodgers last year. So it's like, we can say what we want about Aaron Rodgers, but to go to Pittsburgh, which was tone deaf offensively, make $10 million, he never complained about it. Now, where I think Colin is right with this kind of boisterous take, especially the whole Lloyd Cushenberry part of that, was that, Pittsburgh was pretty lucky last year to get a quarterback as good as Aaron Rodgers was for as little as they ended up paying him. I mean, quarterbacks, like mid-level quarterbacks, are paid like $35-40 million a year. And his analogy here and his comparison to Baker Mayfield, I think, is a pretty good one. You take a look here at the advanced stats from last year, completion percentage over expected. Aaron Rodgers had a straight-up 0, and then Baker Mayfield was in the negatives. All right, the yards per attempt, pretty much exactly the same. big-time throw percentage. Baker has the slight advantage, but very close, and especially when you juxtapose that with Baker having almost double the turnover-worthy play percentages, Rodgers, you look at the passer rating, and Rodgers actually had a better season compared to Baker Mayfield last year. And I feel like when people talk about the top quarterbacks in the league, Baker Mayfield is almost universally regarded as the better quarterback, even though he had worse numbers with better wide receiver help in Tampa Bay than what Rodgers had here in Pittsburgh last year. And to his credit here, Colin, it wasn't triple what he made last year, but Baker did make double against the cap what Aaron Rodgers made last year. And this year, Baker's cap hit jumps all the way up to like $36 million. Aaron Rodgers might be signing again for, 15 and a half or maybe even less than that if they want to rip up the tender, the UFA tender that the Pittsburgh Steelers just put on him. So this year, Rodgers would be playing for around the same. And obviously that would make him one of, if not the most, one of the best values for any contract in the National Football League this year. But you might be saying at home, but Jack, the Steelers can't win a Super Bowl with Rodgers this year, so what's even the point of bringing him back as the QB1 this year? Now, I would push back on the idea that the Steelers at least don't have any chance at all at winning a Super Bowl. I think they would have a chance to go on a run this year with Rodgers with the improved help around him. But let's just say, for argument's sake, the Steelers don't have much of a chance at all of winning a Super Bowl this year with Rodgers at QB1. I still think Rodgers has a ton of value as this team's starting quarterback this year because he can buy Drew Allar time before he has to be thrown into the fire. He can work on his development, all that different stuff that we talked about earlier in the show, and he gets the benefit of having Aaron Rodgers, maybe the world's leading expert in how to be a quarterback in Mike McCarthy's offense, mentoring him and telling him how to do this job before he actually has to do it. And I think, if the Pittsburgh Steelers have the opportunity to give that kind of mentor to Drew Allar and they knowingly say, no thanks, Aaron Rodgers, you're taking too long, even though we'd probably just have to wait another week or two, and it's not really going to affect his preparedness for the season. I think if you deny Drew Allar this opportunity, you don't have his best interests at heart in terms of his developmental process here, because Drew is pretty clearly somebody that needs more than just 1 year to prove that he can be this team's franchise quarterback. You don't draft a quarterback like Drew Allar, who needs significant retooling with his fundamentals, particularly with his footwork, if you're expecting him to be solidified as the guy by the end of this season. No, you bring in a guy like this to place behind a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, where he can sit, learn, develop, fix his footwork, learn how to process NFL defenses so that when his time comes, he is the most prepared to actually make the most of it. And I think bringing back Aaron Rodgers provides that value to this team long term. And guys, even if Pittsburgh goes 10-7 and loses in the first round of the playoffs this year, just like last year with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, at least you set the future up for future success. It's not a wasted season because Drew Allar got very valuable development out of this year. All right, I think the way that you waste this season is you throw Drew Allar and Will Howard out there. They both suck. You waste a really good roster this year, and then you're drafting another quarterback next year when you maybe didn't have to do that if you brought in Aaron Rodgers and Drew Allar actually made the proper steps in development. I think that this is a much smarter way to address the quarterback position, and bringing back Aaron Rodgers is not only an incredible value for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he gives this team the best chance to compete this year, and he also sets up the quarterback room for success in the future. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would having Aaron Rodgers as a mentor be good for Drew Allar? Give me a yes or a no. And if you're answering yes to this question, you better be saying I want him back as the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback this year as well, because I find it hard to believe that, Rodgers wouldn't be of great value for Drew Allar this year, and you're going to deny Drew Allar that opportunity to learn from Aaron Rodgers? What are we doing here? All right, that'll be it for today's show, guys. I greatly appreciate you making it to the end of the show with me here today. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we've got a bunch of great Steelers content coming your way here over the weekend. So if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure you guys click that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, first segment in the books. We got 3 more to go. Don't go anywhere. I got some super chats to address here. Marco Mann says, Weegen's floor is Marvin Mims Jr. Good pickup. His floor, I don't know if I think his floor is a little bit lower than that. Marvin Mims, I like him as a player. But could he be Marvin Mims? Yes. He could certainly be that. So I like Caden Weegen a lot as a player, man. I think that he's going to be a good pickup. Next one here, Ponzi, if you want to read it, I'm going to take a sip.
What QB do you think Allar could mirror? Well, there was a report saying that they view him as Joe Flacco.
Well, that's interesting because when I did my scouting report on Allar pre-draft, by the way, I had Allar as my third-ranked quarterback on my quarterback rankings this year. I had him above Garrett Nussmeier, above Cade Klubnik, all those guys. The only guys I had higher were Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza. My comp for him, if he hits, is Joe Flacco. Now, he could be Jake Locker, too. He could be one of these bigger quarterbacks with a big arm that just never turns into anything. But he could be Flacco. Absolutely. I think that is something that is a very good goal to strive for. And Flacco was a very good quarterback in this division for a long time. Won a Super Bowl, was a bona fide franchise quarterback, and has been so good and so consistent. He's been a good backup in this league for a while now as well, towards the end of his career. So if we get what the Ravens got out of Joe Flacco, out of Drew Allar here in Pittsburgh, way more than worth the third-round pick we spent on him. At this position, at quarterback, get a Super Bowl out of him? Absolutely, I would take that. But I also think that there's the possibility that he could be even better than Joe Flacco. He's got more arm talent than Joe Flacco does. And what I mean by that is the type of throws that he can throw. Joe Flacco was never somebody where somebody could have a hold of him and he could throw a crazy sidearm pass across his body, stuff like that. Drew Allar can make throws Joe Flacco could never have made. But, in terms of physical skill set, outside of the crazy throws that Allar can make, I think it's a pretty good comparison. And I think it's a good goal for Drew Allar to strive for here. $10 from Francesco Rexford says, I think we go around 12-5 this year if A-Rod comes back with less close games. He has a massive improvement to the wide receiver room. I think the only thing I'm cautiously optimistic about is the O-line this year. Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of youth on the offensive line, right? I feel pretty good about it because Brock Hoffman, he's been very solid when he's been asked to play throughout his career. He's never been a full-time starter, so that's the cautiously optimistic portion of that. But, you got Jennings Dunker. You're hoping Dunker's good enough to play right away, transitioning from tackle to guard. If he's not, Hoffman's fine, but eventually Dunker's going to take over that spot. I thought Dylan Cook played really well this past year. I mean, people forget how good Dylan Cook was. I think that he did a pretty darn good job. So if Ahanicher's not ready, I think you keep it exactly the way it was last year with Cook at left tackle, Fautano on the right, and then whenever Ahanicher's ready, you have Fautano move over to the left, and you got Ahanicher playing the right. I think that's probably the way things go there. And then you got Frazier, you got McCormick. I think that the offensive line is perfectly fine. And I think it's going to be pretty darn good this year. Will it be the best O-line in football this year? Probably not, but is it going to be more than functional? Absolutely. And then also they've got that dominant upside down the road if Ahanicher and Jennings both work out. Were you going to say something there, Ponzi? No? $5 from Mike Hoytink. Says John Middlecoff said he thinks Tomlin quit because Omar and the front office are really bad, so Mike T wanted out.
This is what I was reading up about.
Well, this is hilarious to me because of listen, man, Middlecoff's fine analyst, all this different stuff, former scout. I think if he knew anything about the Steelers, he knew that Mike Tomlin was driving the ship on a lot of the personnel decisions. So if he wanted to blame anybody, he'd be blaming himself, all right? He was the main voice in that room making decisions on the personnel as the head coach of the Steelers, and that preceded Omar Khan, by the way. He was the top dog alpha making those final calls as the head coach of this team. So that's not why he quit. He quit because he felt like he was letting this team down, and frankly, he wanted a break from coaching. And
I really do think what Tomlin also got was just there was reports that he was tired with Pittsburgh media for his shortcomings, and credit to that. People like to dog on Tomlin. There was a couple fire Tomlin chants in Acrisure Stadium this year. People don't forget that. I mean, you've been this coach for your entire time, NFL head coaching career.
Never had a truly bad season.
Exactly, and you're getting calls for your head from the home team. That's just not a good feeling. I think if he really wanted to just, Omar Khan, all that, he would have been out and he would have been getting another job. I think that's how that would have worked.
Yeah, I don't think he steps away and doesn't take another job if that's the case. He would have wanted to interview for other jobs if it was just Omar Khan. So with respect to Middlecoff, I don't think he knows what the fuck he's talking about there. $5 from Bernard Nixon. So if Aaron Rodgers feels like he's playing, then he has not. Then why has he not made a decision? Listen, man. This is the best answer I can give you. I agree that he should have already made a decision because I think he's pretty much already made up his mind, even though in Aaron Rodgers fashion, he's trying to remain open to everything and attached to nothing. And I think that's really the approach that he's taking. I think part of it is he doesn't want to do the offseason workouts, the early portion of the offseason program. He's long said how he hates that portion of the offseason, and I think he liked how he was able to, miss that portion of the offseason last year. I think he liked that. So I think that plays a part of this. But also, I think that he wants to get to a certain point of the offseason, and then he wants to make the decision there instead of earlier in the offseason where, let's say he signed a contract with Pittsburgh in March before free agency. All of a sudden, we're in June now, and he's not really feeling like he wants to play another season. I think the nightmare scenario for him is he commits to a season, and then he doesn't want to play that season. I think he wants to make 150% sure he's feeling good in his body, that he feels really good in his heart, that he wants to play this year. And a lot of people are going to criticize that, and I'm kind of there with you. It's like with all the conversations that they're having and how involved that Mike McCarthy says that he is, it's like, why not just sign? And I think that the best answer to this question, Bernard, is he's Aaron Rodgers, and he wants to do things on his own timeline. And, I think a lot of people don't like that, and I think a lot of people want players to kind of work on the team's timelines and on the league's timelines. And Rodgers, because he's a free agent, no one can force him to do shit. He can do what he wants. And I think Rodgers kind of likes that. And then, at the end of the day, if he signs before mandatory minicamp, I don't really have an issue with it because he's going to have 3+ months to prepare for week 1. He's an expert in this offense already. The players in the locker room, it's not like they're losing faith in Aaron Rodgers as a leader because of this. I mean, that's where when he showed up last year and they all revere him. So I think it's a much ado about nothing. I think that it's something that fans get to talk about in the offseason. I think it's something that's noise at this point, if I'm being quite frank with you. $5 from Dominic says, I think I've been rooting for Drew Allar to be a Steeler since Tom Downey hosted this show. Penn State was not a good system/scheme and no receivers. Yeah, man. And I know some people have pointed out, they had good receivers and they went to other places and they played better. Yeah, because they went to better offenses that use their skill sets better, right? The play calling that they had at Penn State. Watching Drew Allar film this year reminded me a lot of Justin Herbert film because the coaching staff at Oregon when Justin was there was so incompetent and didn't use Justin's skill set in the way that they should have used it. And because of that, people kind of doubted whether Justin was able to play in the league because the thinking was, if you run 1 million screens a game and you don't really do any drop back passing, that means your quarterback can't do it. And because of that, we had Tua Tagovailoa, a significantly physically limited quarterback, go ahead of Justin Herbert in that draft. Obviously, Herbert still went high, but he was still perceived as a bit of a risk. Not as much of a risk as Allar's perceived, but I would argue, there's not that much of a difference in their profiles. I think Justin Herbert's a much better athlete. I think he's much quicker than Allar is. So I'm not saying Allar is Justin Herbert, but Allar has insane arm talent, man. And some of those plays that he's made throughout his career, we've seen the flashes of mental processing, going full field progression read. We've seen that from him. We've seen him throw with anticipation. We've seen some really good stuff from Drew Allar in his college career, particularly in 2024. And that quarterback's still there. That was a projected first-round pick at quarterback, this time last year. So I think the Steelers got a steal here. I think that if it works out, you're getting your next franchise quarterback for the low price of a round 3 pick. And if it doesn't work out, sure, you would have liked to have that 3rd-round pick back, but at least you're not mortgaging the future on this guy. So I love the pick.
We got a flurry of Bernard Super Chats coming up here.
A flurry. Okay, so we'll try and move them along here. $5 from Bernard says Sean McVay said last year that if Stafford would have left Rodgers, it was the clear plan B. Yep, we've known that for a while. Next one here from Bernard says, do you think A-Rod could dip the Steelers and go to the Cardinals? Highly doubt it. Steelers situation clearly better than Arizona's. I know he's got a connection to the LaFleur family and then obviously Nathaniel Hackett, but if he decides to go to Arizona over Pittsburgh, we might have to get Aaron Rodgers checked for dementia. $5 from Bernard says, is Aaron Rodgers slipping like Matt Ryan did last year? his last year? I don't think so. I mean, there's always the possibility, right? Because here's the thing that fades with quarterbacks, all right? Obviously, athleticism, and that's already starting with Rodgers. So if you're hoping that Aaron Rodgers is ever going to, like, win an MVP again, I don't think we're ever going to see that again. But, you know, the other thing that slips and the thing that really does these quarterbacks in, we saw it with Kirk Cousins these last 2 years. We saw it with Drew Brees. We saw it with Matt Ryan. They lose their arm strength. We saw it with Peyton Manning. Like, you just know it's over when they can't throw the ball, you know, at a high level anymore, and that's not a problem with Aaron Rodgers. Now, it always could happen, but Aaron is such a natural thrower of the football, and, you know, he's such in great shape. I don't think that it's going to be a Matt Ryan situation. I don't. So that's where I'm at. I think Rodgers will play well next year. $2 from Bernard says people said A-Rod ran Mike T out. Hell, that is, I mean, talk about having no idea about a situation at all, just speculating, and it's like the complete opposite. Like, everything that's being reported is that, you know, Aaron Rodgers cried in Mike Tomlin's arms after he announced his retirement. Oh yeah, they clearly hated him. Clearly hated each other. What a joke, man. Next one here. Says, do you think A-Rod is a coach killer? No, I don't. Tomlin left on his own volition. And by the way, I think that Rodgers would have probably retired if Mike McCarthy didn't come back. And I don't think Mike McCarthy's getting fired because of Aaron Rodgers this year. $5 from Bernard says, I think things like this keeps around A-Rod out of people top 5. Okay, I see what he's saying here. I mean, I don't care what people think. Like, just objectively, he's like a top 5 quarterback all time by the numbers. Now, maybe people weigh championships more than stats. That's fair. All I know is, like, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning are the 4 best quarterbacks I've ever seen play the position, period. Now, that's obviously in my lifetime. I didn't get to see some of these other quarterbacks, but those guys did it better than anybody else. $5 from Tegan says, do you think that Dalen Everett could be moved to safety because of his athleticism? Maybe. I mean, I would be open to that because I'm not sure if he's good enough in man coverage as a corner to be a corner, especially if they want to play a lot of man coverage, which I think Patrick Graham does. So, I didn't love the Dalen Everett pick, so you might have to get creative because he's got such heavy feet, and you know it's tough to mirror when you have heavy feet. So. And then one more here before we get into our second segment of the day here, guys. We got 372 people watching live. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. $2 from Nick says, Madden franchise, who you taking, Cowherd or Allar? Probably Allar just because he's going to have the attributes, right? He's going to have the throw power. He's going to have all the crazy throwing ability and the badges and stuff. Will Cowherd probably not going to have those.
And I will say, for our Madden franchise, which is going to be starting up pretty soon, we're going to have Aaron Rodgers there.
Yeah, for our Madden franchise, we're going to have Aaron Rodgers there.
I think it's just a shoo-in until it isn't.
Yeah, it's just he's going to be there, guys. Like, unless there's a less than 5% chance, I would say, that Rodgers retires or goes somewhere else. So with the chances being that much in the favor of Pittsburgh, we're gonna move forward with our Madden franchise here in the next couple weeks. We're going to get that started here pretty soon, by the way, so make sure you guys are subscribed. We're going to do our annual offseason Madden franchise, and we're going to see just how good this Steelers team is, or at least how good Madden projects them to be this year. Just a fun thing. Obviously, it's not. We don't take it too seriously. It's just fun to watch, you know, during the offseason and in the dog days here where not much is going on. But that's kind of where we're at right now. So, all right, man, let's get into our second segment of the day, which is our post-draft cut candidates and trade candidates. I got 8 players here that could surprisingly not be on the Steelers roster this year if things don't go their way over the next few months. Then we have a very interesting game surrounding Drew Allar that I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with, and I think might blow a couple of your guys' minds. Then we'll get to your questions to finish the show. So again, guys, if you have a question, at this point, you're going to have to super chat to get on the mailbag. I think we're going to limit it to 1 question per person with the super chats, though, just so you guys know. So without further ado, let's get into it right now. The post-draft cut and trade candidates for the Pittsburgh Steelers coming at you right now. Welcome into Steelers Talk by Chat Sports, presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and on today's show, I'm going to be breaking down 8 players that I think might get surprisingly cut or traded away from the Steelers roster here before the start of the 2026 NFL season after the events of the 2026 NFL Draft. Now, before we get into the content today, make sure you guys get your mullet mugs, as we're calling them here. We got the beautiful Jennings Dunker ginger mullet and mustache combination on one side with the Steelers Talk logo on the other side. If you guys want one of these, they're $13.49 on our website, chatsports.com/mullet. to pick yours up today. Really does help out the show, guys. So if you guys want something to sip your morning coffee, especially on Steelers game days, this is a great option for you. Chatsports.com/mullet to get yours today. Now, before we get into my list today, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is not a list of players that I am necessarily predicting are going to get traded or cut this season. It's more of just something where I think, especially if you're going to do a surprise cut candidates list, it's got to be players that maybe a lot of people don't think are going to get cut. But I do think that there is a world where every player on this list today could get cut or traded by the start of this season. So we'll start here with the quarterback position with two players here, Mason Rudolph and Will Howard. Now, I want to start this off by saying I think Mason is probably the one that is way more likely to get cut or traded than Will Howard is. But we'll talk about why Will also makes this list here in a second. But the one thing that I do know is that Aaron Rodgers probably has a really good chance of signing with this team this year, and Drew Allar, being the third-round pick in this room, is likely to get the second spot. So the Steelers usually only carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster. So there's only one more spot for either Will Howard or Mason Rudolph. And if Howard is even or surpasses Rudy in camp this year, like if he's even close to where Mason Rudolph currently is as a backup quarterback, he's going to make the team, right? He's got the youth on his side. He could still be a potential long-term option for this team. I don't think Mason really provides that. Now, if Mason is just way better than Will Howard, and Howard really struggles in camp this year and in the preseason, then yeah, they probably just keep Mason Rudolph as their QB2, and they send Howard packing or maybe put him on practice squad. But at the end of the day, guys, if you could trade Mason Rudolph at this point, I think they should, especially if Rodgers does end up signing with the team, which it sounds like he will eventually. When that happens, I think that we might see the Steelers really start working the phones. And if they can even get like a conditional 7th-round pick for Mason Rudolph, I think they would take that. If they can't find a team, and which is possible, by the way, like teams usually don't look to trade draft capital for a player that is like a mid-level backup quarterback at the very earliest here, or at the very best, I should say. But they could also go with a little bit more of a risky plan here, which is if they want to try and keep all 4 of these quarterbacks in the building, they could keep Mason Rudolph at QB2 and give him a roster spot, then put Will Howard on the practice squad and kind of hope that no other team picks him up on the waiver wire. Now, obviously, if you do that, you risk losing Will Howard. So if you like Will Howard, keep him in the building and then cut Mason Rudolph. And if he wants to come play on practice squad, I don't think he would, but if he does, you could still have him in the building. In terms of practice squad quarterbacks, I think Mason Rudolph would probably be the best one in the National Football League. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. Who's making this team? Type WH for Will Howard or MR for Mason Rudolph. For me, I think the far and away favorite is Will Howard. And Mason has an uphill battle here to make this team this year. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And while you answer this question, I want to tell you about the presenting sponsor here on Steelers Talk, which is Prize Picks, which is America's #1 sports picks app, by the way. With playoff basketball finally here, there's no better time to cash in with Prize Picks, and the app is super easy to use. You just pick more than or less than on a few player stat projections and then lock in your lineup. If you're a hoops guy, you can go with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, or 3-pointers. If you're more of a seam head, you can choose hits, home runs, or strikeouts. You guys can take a look here at this future projection that I have for next year's football season, taking the less on Fernando Mendoza and Jeremiah Love, but the more on Jordan Tyson. I put in a $20 entry fee, and if I get all 3 correct in a power play here, I get $120 back. So one thing that I love about the Prize Picks app, guys, is their social feeds feature, where you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at @CSperry to see all of my lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with Prize Picks today. There's a link down there in the comments and description. You guys click that link. It's going to allow you to download the app on your phone. So if you want that, click that link down there in the description. And a big thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Another name that could be a surprise cut for the Steelers this year would be Caleb Johnson. Now, I want to make abundantly clear, I think KJ makes the team this year, but obviously different coaching staff that brought him in the Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin era at that time. And now, like, you look at this running back room, and it's getting crowded, right? You got Jaylen Warren and Rico Dowdle. You add Riley Nowakowski as a fullback tight end hybrid. But then, in the depth here, you got Caleb Johnson, you got Eli Heidenreich. You also have Travis Homer, who's expected to be a special team specialist this year. So are you really going to keep Caleb Johnson, Heidenreich, and Homer on the team this year? Are they really going to carry 5 running backs, not including Riley Nowakowski, who's technically a fullback? Like, maybe they do if they really like KJ and they feel like he can be a contributor on special teams. But I think that if Pittsburgh lets go of Caleb Johnson, it would be more of a preference to trade him. I still think he's got some value on the trade market just because I think that there's teams out there last year that liked KJ that might still view him as a decent option for them. He's still very young, obviously, so I don't think KJ's worth nothing on the trade market if they don't feel like he's a fit here in Pittsburgh with this new offensive scheme coming in. But something tells me Mike McCarthy's going to find something for him to do on special teams. He'll also be very good depth for this running back room heading into the year, and hopefully he can carve himself out a role here in Pittsburgh moving forward. But can't say it completely shocked me if he's not on the team once we get to week 1. Then we get to Roman Wilson, another guy here that, it's really a make or break year for Roman Wilson, in my opinion, because obviously the first 2 years weren't good enough. It got so bad last year, according to Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin, that they had to go out and get 2 veterans to replace him, and Adam Thielen and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. But I think that they miscasted him, and they played him on the outside his first 2 years, and they very rarely played him in the slot, which is where I think he's way more comfortable. That's what he played at Michigan. He was one of the best slot receivers in college football in a national championship team there with the Wolverines. And listen, I don't think Roman is going to be a starter with this team. I think you got DK and Michael Pittman Jr. I do think Jeremy Bernard will be your starting wide receiver 3 immediately. But listen, you got other depth in this group as well now. Like A.T. Perry, I think is an interesting camp body. I also think it's interesting that, you got Heidenreich in here now. Like, you've got Ben Skoranek that's going to be getting a roster spot as well. And now you got Caden Weegan as well, who I think is going to be somebody that might be more than just a punt returner in the league. So if Roman doesn't show his worth this year as a slot guy, he could get traded or cut. I'm sure there's still teams out there that like Roman enough to maybe trade a 7th-round pick for him maybe. And if not, and if there's other players in camp in this room that are playing better than him, can't say it completely shocked me if Roman's not on this team this year, if he's not showing himself to be a good football player. But I want to make abundantly clear here, my actual prediction for Roman is he's going to be a nice piece to this offense this year. I think that he, in certain formations and with certain concepts, he's going to be their quote-unquote smaller slot guy that they bring in a rotational role, and I think that he will carve himself out a very nice role, and he will be a nice contributor to this offense here in Pittsburgh this year because he's actually playing his natural position. But then Broderick Jones is the next guy in this list, and I think the only way Broderick's not on this team next year is if this injury, really just doesn't improve and all that different stuff. So it would certainly be a surprise, but that's why it's a surprise cut candidates list, right, guys? So that's really the thing. That's the X factor for Broderick is, will he heal up in time for training camp? Will he be healthy enough to start the season? If not, especially because you just drafted another first-round tackle, Dylan Cook is a really good option as well that provides depth. You still got Troy Fautanu, he could get booted. Now, I don't think the Steelers want to do that because if he hits free agency next year and he signs a big contract somewhere else, then he's going to get, he's going to be worth maybe a comp pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think that he'll end up making the team this year as long as his neck is not just completely effed. I think he will make the team. He'll probably be more of a backup unless he really plays well in camp this year. And we'll just have to see what happens with Broderick, but he's definitely skating on thin ice here with his future with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you guys appreciate our hard work here at Steelers Talk, the early mornings, the late nights, the full weekend of live coverage that we provided for you guys during the NFL Draft, we'd greatly appreciate it if you guys click that thumbs up icon for us today to help this video be the best that it can possibly be. We put in a ton of work to try and get you guys the best Steelers content that we can get you guys. So if you appreciate our efforts, we'd greatly appreciate you guys doing your part here and clicking that thumbs up icon. Now we'll get to Corey Trice Jr. here. Now maybe this one wouldn't be as surprising just because of the amount of injuries that he's had and all this different stuff, but you look at the situation right now in the secondary and, it's starting to fill up a bit. And I just, if he gets injured again, or if he's just not looking the part, or if he's not as explosive as he used to be, which is all, realistic possibilities. He's had, 7 different types of injuries at this point in his Steelers career. He's going to be done. All right, this is his last chance. Obviously, it's his final year of his rookie contract, so it's this year or never for Corey Trice Jr., and I'm rooting for him. He's got long arms. He's physical. At least he was athletic coming into the league. I don't know what his athleticism looks like at this point with the amount of injuries he's had, but it just sucks that Corey Trice Jr. has been as injured as he's been, and if he gets another one, he's probably off this team. But then we'll finish out here with a couple draft picks for the Steelers this year, and Gabriel Rubio and Robert Spears-Jennings. Rubio, because he's had injury concerns in the past as well, so if he gets injured or if he doesn't look good in camp, he didn't test very well at the Notre Dame Pro Day. Like, it's possible that one of these guys, like maybe Jahri Jr. from the UDFA class, just looks better than Rubio does, and they end up cutting Rubio and maybe placing him on the practice squad. And then Robert Spears-Jennings, I like his speed, I like his physicality and all that different stuff, but his film is really bad, in my opinion, guys. The coverage in particular is really, really rough. And if it's really bad in camp this year, I don't know if there's going to be a roster spot for him this year. And they might try to, keep him on practice squad and kind of take their chances with him the same way they did with Sebastian Castro last year. I just don't know if he's going to be somebody that's going to stick on the roster here in his rookie season. So keep an eye out for those two maybe being in danger if they don't have great training camps. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Which Steelers player that's currently on the roster, so no Aaron Rodgers here, will surprisingly not be on the Steelers roster here in Week 1 this year? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Definitely gave you guys some names here today. If it's somebody else, let me know as well. So that'll be it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, second segment in the books here. Ponzi, I need to go grab my charger here. So if you want to answer a few of these questions here and take over while I go grab my charger so my computer doesn't die on me here for these final 2 segments. What's up? Yeah, I can grab it. All right, Ponzi's got you guys covered here for like the next 2 minutes. I just got to grab something real quick, and then we'll answer your questions, get into a really fun segment coming up here, Ponzi, the Drew Allar segment here. I think it's some of our best work, guys. I'm not going to lie. So stay tuned for that. Ponzi, take it away here for the next 2 minutes.
Bernard Nixon with the $5 saying it's not a bad thing that 2 young quarterbacks sit behind a Hall of Famer. Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all. I think, if you're going to have a situation where you can learn and develop, come into the league as a young QB, I'd rather sit, to be honest. Like, you have a lot to prove. A lot of these young quarterbacks have a lot on their shoulders, and some people are built for that. You have like the C.J. Strouds who amaze in year 1, but like if you're here telling me that C.J. Stroud wouldn't have benefited from a sit and develop type of year in year 1, I think I disagree with that. I think you got the guy who's learned this McCarthy offense, who's been in this offense before, and I think this is a great place to be as a young quarterback here in Pittsburgh. Bernard Nixon with another 5. Did people go in on Favre when he did this? Yeah. There was actually a whole a little forum and I think a documentary on him where it was like, Brett Favre is a traitor to the Green Bay Packers organization. He shouldn't have unretired. He shouldn't have taken his time. It's like, obviously I wasn't young enough to remember that, but if you go back and looking at some of those documentaries about Favre, people just wailed on him. Thank you. As he took his time and he retired, unretired 3 times. That's what Brett Favre did. So I don't know, man. People revisionist history here, but Brett Favre did get criticized for unretiring a lot of times. But I want Rodgers to make his decision. I think we all do, but it may be just a Green Bay thing of I'm going to take my time. I'm going to, take all my chances, just understand what I need to do. But come on, just make your decision.
I think it's just a testament to how impatient we have become as a society, where we want things to happen on our timeline. And sometimes that's just not the way it works, man. And if you have the choice between having Aaron Rodgers on the team, who's an awesome value that you're not really paying anything to from a quarterback's perspective, less than $20 million to a quarterback is insane value, especially for somebody that's playing good football. Then also, like, he gives your team full of veterans that are trying to win a Super Bowl right now the best chance to do so this year. Then also, you're giving your young quarterbacks in your room an excellent mentor to learn from, especially a guy in Drew Allar. You're buying him time to actually develop and actually fix his footwork. Like, if you don't have Aaron Rodgers in the building and Will Howard stinks early on in the season, Drew Allar is going to be forced out there probably earlier than he's ready. And, like, if you have Drew Allar's best interest in mind, which I think the Steelers should, I think, like, it's just so obvious to me that Aaron Rodgers is the best fit for this team. And yes, it's frustrating that you have to wait for his decision, but at the end of the day, the reward is worth the wait, in my opinion. So $10 here from Hunter. It says, beyond helping Drew, how valuable is Aaron for a young offensive line and wide receiver group learning a new scheme he's mastered? Is there precedent for veteran quarterbacks accelerating an offense's development and cohesion? It's interesting. Trying to think of an example. I don't know if I can really think of an example of a quarterback that played as long as Rodgers played in McCarthy's offense and then playing in that same offense again later in his career. It's so tough because not a lot of players have played as long as Rodgers, and not many head coaches get multiple opportunities the way McCarthy has. So it's kind of a unique situation, but I think that it's reasonable to say that yes, like, and honestly, I think a lot of what Rodgers did last year in the Arthur Smith offense implemented a lot of the stuff that he liked in the Mike McCarthy offense. So I honestly think that it's going to be a pretty easy transition going from last year's offense to this year's offense because Aaron Rodgers is a West Coast guy. That's the type of system he likes to run. So I think that already there's an element of an easier transition there because they played a lot of these West Coast type of concepts last season.
I mean, the only quarterback that really had like a veteran quarterback that accelerated a team's offensive development and cohesion that I could think of was like Kurt Warner, who did things with that Cardinals offense. But even then, he was still struggling, and they didn't have any connections other than it was kind of a similar scheme, but like it wasn't really like. That's the only guy I could really think of that had that same, like, oh, we're going to, this team is young. The quarterback makes it better because of what he knows.
I mean, maybe the best example I can think of is when Josh McDaniels was the OC of New England. Then he became the head coach of the Broncos. Then he came back. And now, Bill O'Brien played a very similar offense to Josh McDaniels. So it was the same Aaron Perkins system. So I don't know how much of a transition that really was going back to McDaniels there in New England, but
I don't know, man. Like, I feel like,
but I think that there is something to that, Hunter, where it's like, you have that translator, right? You have that translator from the old system with Arthur Smith and somebody that played in a Mike McCarthy offense for a decade
which
plus.
would be nice why he would be here right now.
Yeah, it's just another feather in the cap for why bringing back Aaron Rodgers makes all the sense in the world for the Pittsburgh Steelers. $10 from Rad Doctor says, excellent observation on Rodgers. We want everything right away and can't always get our way. Yes, I think that is absolutely where we're at. And at the end of the day, if Rodgers doesn't come to Pittsburgh, I will be pissed at the Steelers. I'll be pissed at Rodgers. I'll be pissed all the way around. All right, I'll be just as pissed as you are that this ended the way that it did. But if he ends up signing with the team before mandatory minicamp, early June, all right? Like, if he signs in early June again, I don't really have an issue with it because it didn't affect his preparedness last year. It's definitely not going to prevent him from being prepared this year because he'd have a quarter of a year to prepare for week 1. That's plenty of time. Plenty of time, guys. All right, I understand that people just want to know as early as possible in the offseason, and I get that, but like, if the second best option that you have at quarterback for this year is a QB that has never taken a live snap in an NFL game and was a 6th-round pick just 2 years ago or last year, whatever you guys want to say, like, it's a pretty big chasm between Aaron Rodgers and Will Howard in terms of who's the better short-term option. And then also, I think the long-term answer at the quarterback takes a hit if Rodgers isn't here because especially Drew Allar doesn't get the year of mentorship from him. So that's kind of where I'm at with this whole situation, man. Like, Rodgers is an incredible value. Teammates love him and want him back. Played pretty darn well last year, 95 passer rating with the worst wide receiver room in football. Led this team to double-digit wins. First time in like a half decade at least that this team has been above league average in offensive production. Won the division, delivered multiple game-winning drives, beat the Ravens twice, and on top of that, like, he's getting a better wide receiver room this year. He's getting a better play caller this year. The defense is probably going to be better around him this year. Like, I don't get what's not to like. And he helps your younger quarterback room now. Like, you're getting all that value from a guy that's worth $15 million against your cap. I don't get what's not to like. The only thing that's not to like is you have to wait for him. I don't get it. $5 from Carrion. Or Carry On, don't know. And he says, do you believe Evan Stewart will be selected in the upcoming draft considering his recent injury comeback? I'm going to be completely honest with you, my friend. I have not looked into next year's NFL draft at all. I know the most I know about next year's class is the quarterbacks, actually. So I wish I had a better answer for you on Evan Stewart, my friend, but is that the edge from South Carolina? Is that who I'm thinking of, or is that Dylan Stewart? Because whoever the edge from South Carolina, he's insane. He is a fucking beast. But yeah, man, like, obviously I do all the research on the players that are eligible this year, right? So can't say I've done enough research on these guys to give you. Oh, he's a wide receiver from Oregon. Well, I didn't watch any Dante Moore film this year, unfortunately, because he didn't come out. So, but I will be doing Dante Moore stuff this offseason, getting ready for this college football season. So I'm looking forward to watching Evan Stewart. $2 from Carrion against his thoughts on Dante Moore coming out of college. Well, he's a senior next year, isn't he? Or is he still eligible to go back another year after next year? Because Dylan Raiola's there currently, and I think that he's doing like the developmental year thing. But listen, man, Moore is a fun prospect. Next year, even though he's a junior? Oh, so he's a senior this year. So he has to come out next year. Is that right? Okay. So he'll be a senior this year. Okay. Yeah, that's crazy. Redshirt senior at 21 is nuts. But he'll still be young coming out next year, right? So it'll be interesting to see, because if he sucks this year, or if he gets majorly injured and he falls to like round 2 or round 3 like Allar did this year, he could have been the number 2 pick this year and got paid a lot more. So
he would have been.
Yeah, he would have been the number 2 pick. He would be a New York Jet right now if he would have came out. So now, I'm a big believer in it's where you go. It's where you end up in terms of team, not where you go in terms of pick. And that's why I love where Drew Allar ended up. He's in the perfect situation to learn from Rodgers, to spend a year to fix his footwork. Perfect situation for Drew Allar. If he would have gone to the Jets, it would have been a terrible situation, because Geno, if he doesn't play well, he probably would have been asked to play right away. So I don't know, man. We'll have to see. He's going to come out this year, so obviously he's an option for the Steelers next offseason if they want to move on from their 2 younger quarterbacks. But I don't think that's the way the Steelers are approaching it. I think that's the way fans are approaching it. It's like, who can we get in 2027 before even seeing Will Howard or Drew Allar? And, I think that this coaching staff, their mindset is that, okay, let's see what these guys look like in our building for a year behind a veteran quarterback. And if we like what we see behind the scenes this year, great. We'll start one of these guys next year. If not, and we don't like what we see from these guys, and we think there's a better opportunity with a rookie quarterback next year in the draft, fine, we'll draft a quarterback again next year. Like, I think that they have an open mind about how to address this quarterback position moving forward, but I think their focus heading into this year is to how do we get the most out of these quarterbacks this year, and how much development can we get these guys to actually get done here in year 1 of their NFL careers. Well, I know Will is in year 2, but, he hasn't played yet. $2 from Bernard says A-Rod is 42, so I do get it. 2, he's not 24 anymore. Is he still a good quarterback or not? That's the question that I have on my mind. Yes, he's not the old Aaron Rodgers anymore. The old Aaron Rodgers was the best quarterback in football. He's no longer the best quarterback in football. But a reduced version of Aaron Rodgers is still like at least a middle-of-the-pack starting quarterback. And with a really good roster around him and a good play caller, all this different stuff, he can be a very productive quarterback. So that's where I'm at with that. A-Rod got us a Lions win too, must-win game. Yes, he sure did. Some big-time throws in that game and one hell of a catch from Kenneth Gainwell. $5 from Eric Cable. Says you always say this BS about how Will Howard has not taken a competitive snap. DA has none, and Will Howard has a year behind Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers isn't back, Will Howard is the answer. I actually agree with you here, Eric. I think if Aaron Rodgers isn't back, Will Howard is the guy you start at the beginning of the year. Now, do I think there's a pretty big chasm in the quality of QB1 there in terms of the chances of you having a successful season this year between Aaron Rodgers and Will Howard? Yes. But if I had a choice between Will Howard and Drew Allar this year, right now, I'm picking Will Howard because Drew Allar has significant things he needs to work on with his footwork. And I'm standing on what I'm saying here and saying that Allar needs time to develop. He's not good. Like, this is why I'm so against the idea of start Howard and if he doesn't work out, play Allar at the end of the season this year. It's because I don't think Allar's going to be ready this year. I'd be really impressed, in fact, if he's ready at all this year and he fixes his footwork in 1 year and he's ready to play NFL football. I think what's best for, the team is Rodgers is back. You have the best chance to compete this year. Then, you have these two guys working behind the scenes, developing and learning and being mentored by Rodgers, and then you make a decision based on who's looking better in practices and in meetings and all this different stuff in 2027. I think that's the way you go about this. That's my personal opinion. But I agree with you, my friend. Like, if between Will Howard or Drew Allar this year, I'm picking Will Howard because I think he's more ready to play right now. $2 from Bernard Nixon says, I don't see no drama at all. I mean, I see some drama, but I don't think the drama is inside the Steelers building or with Rodgers. I think the drama is being stirred up by the media and the people that want to be offended by it. And, I don't think the Steelers are offended by it. Maybe you think they should be, but they're not. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is offended by the moves the Steelers have made with the tender. So I think that this is a much ado about nothing, as I like to say. $5 from Carry On again says, do you believe I think we already showed that one, didn't we? Yeah, I think we've already seen this one. Sure. What do you say? Why didn't we use Jabril Peppers much last year? What's his role this upcoming season? So I hate to break it to you, Carry On. Jabril Peppers is not on the team. He is a free agent. So I mean, you can still pick him up, I guess, but doesn't seem like he's going to be added. And the reason why we didn't use him last year is that the coaching staff, I guess, preferred Chuck Clark. I don't know why. Jabril was a lot better when he did play. He started the game in New England, and he played pretty well. Like, he forced a fumble. He played really well in that game. And then he never started a game the rest of the year. So I don't know. I think they just thought that he was more valuable as a true special teams weapon. I don't get it. I'll be completely honest with you. I think that was a Tomlin and Terrell Austin misfire there, playing Chuck Clark way more than they played Jabril Peppers, who I thought was a better safety and a better player. But that's classic Mike Tomlin for you, right? All right. Yeah, I think we're ready to get into our next segment here, guys. Again, keep those super chats coming. We'll make sure to get to all of your questions in the mailbag here and before we end the show. But first, we've got a very fun segment here that I think might blow your mind when it comes to new Steelers quarterback Drew Allar. Let's get into it right now. Welcome into Steelers Talk by Chat Sports, presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. And today's video, guys, it might blow your mind when it comes to new Steelers quarterback Drew Allar. We got a little bit of a fun game for you guys, and then we got some discussion about the upside and the value that the Pittsburgh Steelers got here by drafting the Penn State Nittany Lion quarterback here in round 3 at pick number 76. Now, before we get into the content today, I want you guys to kick us off down there in the comments section to get some of that engagement going here. Do you believe in Drew Allar? Very simple question. Give me a yes or a no. Do you think Drew Allar will be something here for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the years to come? Now, we're going to start today's show with a little game, okay? And I kind of had this idea reading Drew Allar scouting reports, kind of getting ready for our scouting report video on Drew Allar. And today I'm going to show you 5 pre-draft quarterback scouting reports, okay? And only one of these pre-draft scouting reports is going to be on Drew Allar, okay? The other 4 are going to be on quarterbacks whose names you probably recognize pretty quickly. Patrick Mahomes coming out in 2017 out of Texas Tech, Josh Allen from Wyoming in 2018, Justin Herbert out of Oregon in 2020, and Drake May coming out of UNC in 2024. Okay, and before we start here, and before we break down these scouting reports, and by the way, I have randomized the order of these scouting reports, so you guys don't know what order they're going to be in. Before we start, I want to make crystal clear that I am not predicting that Drew Allar will end up being as good as these 4 quarterbacks, because obviously these 4 are some of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. Drew Allar still has a long ways to go. But the point of it here is that, some of these quarterbacks that were coming out and were drafted in the first round had very similar scouting reports and very similar pros and cons to Drew Allar coming out of Penn State. Now, before we get into the game here, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. With playoff basketball finally here, there's no better time to cash in with our friends at Prize Picks. The app is really easy to use. You just pick more than or less than on a few player stat projections and lock in your lineup. If you're a hoops guy, you can go with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, or 3-pointers. And if you're more of a seam head, you like baseball, you can choose hits, home runs, or strikeouts. You guys can look ahead to next year's football season even here, and you even got the rookies up there. So I'm taking the less on Fernando Mendoza and Jeremiah Love, and I'm taking the more on Jordan Tyson in this particular projection. Put in a $20 entry fee. If I win, I get $120 back in a power play from our friends at Prize Picks. And you guys can take advantage of their new social feeds feature on their app as well, where you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at CSperry to see all of my lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups on Prize Picks. Click the link down in the comments and description to download the app, and a big thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring Steelers Talk. All right, so the first quote is going to be coming from Dane Brugler from The Athletic, one of the more respected NFL draft analysts in the NFL draft space here. And we've taken all the names out here, guys, so we've just replaced the names with he's and hims, so you guys don't know which quarterback is going to be, and I'm going to have you guys guess which one is Drew Allar's at the end of this year. So Brugler said he is a sturdy, strong-arm passer with promising intangibles, but underdeveloped timing disrupts his ability to execute at a high level. He has NFL starting caliber physical tools, although a lack of natural passing rhythm creates uncertainty about his developmental ceiling. All right, on to our next quote here. This one's coming in from Mike Renner from CBS Sports, who had this to say about this particular quarterback. He is as interesting a prospect as there is at the quarterback that comes with high risk, high reward. His arm is as good as any quarterback in the NFL playing right now. The natural passing instincts as far as sliding and feeling pass rushers in the pocket to seeing in front of the throw and adjusting to the type of throw needed is special. His lack of discipline in the pocket with footwork, bailing on clean pockets, and decision-making is a big concern. Some of the bailing on pockets can be attributed to how much rush 3, drop 8 in the coverage he saw, which can lead to playing outside of structure to find passing lanes more often. Coming from a system with everything so spread out and defined passing lanes, there will be an adjustment period needed for the NFL game and seeing tighter throwing lanes. He is not likely a day one starter in the NFL. All right, so that's that one. Now we can get to Matt Miller from ESPN, who had this to say about this quarterback. He was billed as a future QB1 after his amazing junior season, but he struggled as a senior in 2025. He was held back some by the scheme and talent around him in college, but he also must learn to trust his traits more and be an aggressive thrower. He has rare size and athleticism, but he hasn't used that ability to date. Unlocking it will be the key to his success in the NBC Sports' Chris Sims, here with quote number 5, who had this to say about one of these 5 quarterbacks. You watch the highlight package and you go, wow, looks the part. Got the prototypical size and kind of got the look of a franchise QB. And his wow throws are like, damn, okay, but every one of those throws, there are 5 of what the hell is that throw? There's no way evaluators, coaches, quarterbacks, any of that are going to be able to get behind him and say, oh yeah, he's ready to go. There's too many things about his game that need polish. Again, I think there's potential here, but I don't think it's anywhere near around the corner. This is more like he needs to sit on the bench a little bit. He needs to work on some real mechanical issues that he has. All right, so if Drew Allar is clearly, way lower than these other quarterbacks coming out, which scouting report is Drew Allar's without looking it up? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. I'm going to reveal which quarterbacks are matched with which scouting report here in just a second, but give me a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Think about it for a second. Pause the video if you need, and then give your answer down there in the comment section. All right, so I'm going to start revealing them here. The first one was Drew Allar from Dane Brugler of The Athletic. That was his scouting report from the Beast this year. So if you got that one right, congratulations to you. But you look at the rest of these here. Mike Renner from CBS Sports said all these things about Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes. He's got some special physical tools, but he bails on clean pockets. The accuracy's not there. It's not going to be ready to play on day one. All this different stuff. He was seen as a boom or bust quarterback prospect, according to Mike Renner, just like Drew Allar is apparently. Then you get to Matt Miller, who had this to say about Justin Herbert, okay? His scouting report here saying that, he had a really good sophomore season, then he struggled his final 2 years at Oregon, all these different things, the system and all this different stuff at Oregon didn't allow him to really show his talents. And unlocking his athleticism is going to be his key to success in the NFL. Then you get to Lance Zierlein. His was about Josh Allen here, talking about boom or bust with Josh Allen, talking about the completion percentage being so low and the accuracy being so bad that he can't succeed in the NFL. Does that, strike a little bit of a bell there when people talk about Mr. Drew Allar? And then Chris Sims had that to say about Mr. Drake May, calling him, he's got the prototypical size, he's got the highlights, but he needs so much more polish, and his footwork is so bad, and all this different stuff. Listen, man, I understand why Drew Allar gets viewed the way that he does, but when people say, these quarterbacks were clearly viewed as better coming out, I think it's a little bit of revisionist history. And I actually think we can take a look here. And I think what's pretty interesting is you take a look at Drew Allar's 2024 season. So that was 2 years ago when he was a junior there at Penn State versus the final seasons of Mahomes, Allen, all these guys. You look at the numbers, and they're pretty darn similar, man. You look at all of these here. You look at Josh Allen's, his completion percentage was 55%. All right, his yards per attempt was almost 2 yards less than Drew Allar in 2024. His passer rating was almost 30 points less than Allar's was in 2024. Then same thing goes for Justin Herbert. I mean, Allar had more yards per attempt, so he was more efficient than Herbert was his final season there. Obviously, Herbert beat him out with touchdowns and slightly with the passer rating, but then Allar beat him out with the big-time throw percentage and the turnover-worthy play percentage, all right? So not a huge difference there either. And then Drake May, another guy that was not surrounded by a good surrounding cast his final year in college, pretty much identical yards per attempt numbers. Touchdown percentage was higher for Allar. Now, May had more big-time throws, and he actually protected the ball pretty well that year, but Allar's passer rating in 2024 was higher than Drake May's in his final season at UNC. And remember, after that 2024 season, Allar was viewed as a potential first-round pick. He was projected as a first-round pick going into his senior season there at Penn State, and obviously after losing Tyler Warren, that terrible play calling there at Penn State, all that different stuff, and of course the injury, it all just crumbled for Drew Allar, unfortunately for him, and instead of going in the first round, which is where he would have gone if he went out last year, he ends up falling into the third round. right into the lap of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And guess what, guys? That high-level QB talent that we saw in 2024, that was a projected first-round pick, is still in there, okay? If you give him proper weapons, and, he only really had one, really good weapon at Penn State his time there, and that was Tyler Warren, and he just fed him nonstop in 2024. Now he's inheriting an offense here with Mike McCarthy calling the plays. You got DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., Jeremy Bernard, Pat Freiermuth. You got legitimate weapons to work with, and I just want to make abundantly clear again, guys, this video is not to say, oh, Drew Allar's going to be Patrick Mahomes, or Drew Allar's going to be Justin Herbert, or he's going to be Josh Allen. The point is, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Drake May were not viewed as perfect prospects coming out. All right, they were viewed as boom or bust type of guys that needed more polish, just like Drew Allar does heading into the league. And, I think that, when you look at this whole situation, it's certainly possible that Drew does not work out. There's certainly quarterbacks that have high potential going into the league, and then they just don't get it heading into the league, right? For every Mahomes or Josh Allen that we get in this league, we have just as many Trey Lances and Justin Fields and Anthony Richardsons and all these guys that just don't get it. And at the end of the day, man, if you're going to be honest about the Drew Allar situation, you have to at least admit the possibility that he doesn't get it at the next level, and he doesn't develop the footwork, and the accuracy doesn't get better like it did for Josh Allen and some of these other quarterbacks that we've talked about today, right? That possibility is absolutely there. But what I am saying about Drew Allar, and what this video is supposed to kind of deliver the message of, is that we've seen these quarterbacks be highly talented, boom or bust, developmental type of prospects come out and, be pretty big risks because these teams invested first-round picks in them, and they've worked out in the past, and they've developed in the National Football League. And if they could do it, why is it impossible for Drew Allar to be the next success story in terms of developmental quarterback prospects here in the National Football League? Especially because Drew is going into a situation that I would argue is the ideal setup for a developmental quarterback to get better in. You get a year to sit and develop, to work on your footwork and really develop your mental process and all this different stuff, so you learn how to do the job before you actually have to do it and you get thrown into the fire. You're probably going to have a Hall of Famer that's an expert, maybe the world's leading expert in being a quarterback in a Mike McCarthy offense and Aaron Rodgers. You get a quarterback developer in Mike McCarthy, who's obviously an offensive-minded head coach, but also he's an accomplished quarterback developer that has a specialty in developing quarterback fundamentals. That's exactly what Drew Allar needs. And then when he is eventually ready to play, he's going to be inheriting a playoff caliber roster with more than enough weapons to have success. This is the perfect situation for Drew Allar to end up in. And here's the thing, guys. Those other teams, for the quarterbacks that we talked about today, they had to invest first-round picks in their quote-unquote boom or bust or developmental type quarterbacks. The Pittsburgh Steelers were able to get their guy in this category for much less than that, and they didn't have to mortgage the future to get somebody that could be their next star quarterback here in Pittsburgh. All right, you get that kind of star-level upside, that amazing arm talent that Drew Allar brings to the table for a round 3 value, and that's incredible value, guys. It just is. All right, if he turns into the next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's going to be the steal of the draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers and probably just the draft class at large. That will be an absolute steal. And if he doesn't work out, then it's you probably would have liked to have that third-round pick back, but you're not mortgaging the future, right? You're not giving up multiple first-round picks or even a singular first-round pick to take this player. So I think it's absolutely worth the swing. I think that Drew Allar has a really good chance to develop here in Pittsburgh. I think he's put in the perfect situation where if he has it in him, guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers have the situation to get it out of him. So we'll see if he has it in him, but I definitely am excited about the Drew Allar era here in Pittsburgh. All right, that'll be it for today's show, guys. And if you're a real one that made it to the end of the show here, I want you to identify yourselves down there in the comments section. Type real one down there in the chat if you made it to the end of today's show. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. We'll show you some love down there in the comments if you type those real ones in all caps. And that'll be it for today's program. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We also have a full Drew Allar scouting report up on the channel. If you haven't watched that already, I'll put the chip to that one in the top right here if you want to check that out. But for today's video, that's going to be it. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. I'll see you guys next time. And until then, here we go, Steelers. All right, I think he pretty much sent that same exact super chat, only with 24. Next one here says, Big Ben wants Aaron Rodgers back. He does. And then it sounds like he's not super high on Drew Allar. So I think he needs to watch more of the crazy throws. But because he like the thing that he said about Allar, it's just like weird to me. He's like, he didn't wow me. And it's like, what do you mean by that? Because he has some of the most batshit crazy, amazing throws that you're going to see anywhere. Like, he's got some awesome wow throws. Like, that's not the issue with Drew Allar. The issue with Drew Allar is the consistency aspect of things. And by the way, we just talked about it, Ponzi. A lot of these successful quarterbacks that are some of the best quarterbacks in the game, that was their issue coming out of school. And they all figured it out. Now, not everybody does figure it out, but especially in this situation where you get Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers to learn from, time to sit and develop, like, he gets all the luxuries for a young quarterback to develop. So if he has it in him, man, I think he's going to be a good quarterback. So I like the investment that the Steelers made for sure. $2 from Bernard says, why did Arth say we want to know by the draft? He says, well, I think what he said was, I think we'll have a decision by the draft. And I think part of it is Aaron has kind of like told them this offseason, I don't want it to drag on, all this different stuff. And I honestly think it's Aaron that's kind of moving the goalposts in the timeline. And that's a little sneaky to me. That's a little janky to me because, like, I don't think Omar Khan goes up in front of everybody, the world, at the Combine and says this will not take as long as it did last year unless Aaron made it seem pretty darn clear to him that it wasn't going to take as long. So I honestly think it's Rodgers and what he's saying to the Steelers and trying to buy himself more time. Just give me a couple more weeks, and then a couple weeks pass, just give me a couple more weeks. I think it's probably one of those situations. So I guess we'll see what happens down the road. $2 from Bernard again. Says people think A-Rod is the 23rd best QB. Right now? I mean, we think there's 22 QBs that would have had a 95 passer rating with the wide receiver room that they had last year. Really?
Name names real quick.
All right, I'm going to look up passer rating leaders in 2025.
You could argue like the top 5 or top 10, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert.
All right, I'm just going to read, okay? How many quarterbacks had a higher passer rating than Aaron Rodgers last year? 13. 13. Okay? And one of them's a backup, Mac Jones.
We'll take him off.
With a limited sample size. There are only 10 quarterbacks in the league that had a better passer rating last year than Aaron Rodgers that played 10 or more games. Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy also had higher passer ratings, but they only played 8 and 9 games. So last year, if you count the quarterbacks that played large sample sizes, double-digit game sample sizes, Aaron Rodgers was 11th in the league in passer rating, with maybe the worst wide receiver room in football. And we're trying to say he's the 23rd best quarterback in the game, guys. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing, man? Like, I understand people don't like him as a person. They're frustrated with the weight, but like that doesn't mean that we have to change history here because he was pretty good last year. Was he amazing? Was he MVP quality? No. Was he good? Yeah, he was good. He had a higher passer rating than these quarterbacks last year. You ready? He had a higher passer rating than Justin Herbert last year. He had a higher passer rating than C.J. Stroud. Had a higher passer rating than Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes. All right? Bo Nix. Pretty much, I mean, what are we doing here, guys? All those guys had better wide receiver rooms than the Steelers. All of them. And I'm not saying Rodgers is necessarily better than all those guys. I'm just saying, from a production standpoint, Aaron Rodgers played pretty darn well given what he was given last year. And now that we've fixed the wide receiver room, I don't know why people think Rodgers can't be in the top 15 in passer rating again. At least. I think that drives me up a wall sometimes with some fans in this fan base, is that they want things now. They want the young quarterback now, even if he's not ready. And it's just like, you got to be patient. Got to be patient, fellas. Got to be patient. And I know you guys have been waiting for a playoff win for a long time. I get it. You're tired of waiting for a reset and all this different stuff. But I'm telling you, man, Telling you. All right? I have a good feeling if Rodgers comes back and he stays healthy, he's going to be even better than he was last year. And he was top 15 in passer rating last year. So.
No, rock with Will Howard.
Yeah,
actually, bring Russell Wilson.
But no. Yeah, let's go. Let's go with Will Howard this year. And Drew Allar. He can go fuck himself. He doesn't get the benefit of having a year to learn from Rodgers. We're just gonna throw him right into the fire because hey, we got to figure out if we got to take a quarterback in 2027. Like that's how the Browns think of the quarterback situation, guys. That's how the Jets think of the quarterback situation. You know who doesn't think that way? The Green Bay Packers. And they've had 3 straight home runs at the quarterback position. Maybe it's because every quarterback they've had has had time to sit and develop and learn how to do the job before they're actually asked to do it. Maybe that is a big reason why. Because they actually have the patience to go through a process. Instead of, we're tired of losing. We got to go to the young quarterback even if he's not ready. I mean, I don't get that take. I don't. All right, man. Well, let's get to the mailbag here and finish up this live show. You guys have been fantastic with the super chats. Thank you guys so much. So we got about 300 people watching live, by the way. What's that? Oh. All right. Well, let's get to the mailbag right now, guys. You guys have had some great questions. Let's revisit them right here on Steelers Talk Live. Welcome into Steelers Talk by Chat Sports, presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today it's my favorite segment of the week. It is the Steelers Talk Mailbag. It's our first mailbag since the end of the NFL Draft, so I'm sure you guys have got some great questions for me here. Breaking down the very latest surrounding the black and gold. But before we get into your questions today, make sure you guys join us on our live shows every single week here. We're usually on Thursdays. We do this mailbag and we film it live, and you guys have the opportunity to have your voice heard on this channel. So if you guys want that opportunity and you guys want to see your name up on one of these mailbags in the future, make sure you guys click that subscribe button. We try to give you guys the most interactive fan community for Steelers fans anywhere here on YouTube, and I think that's a big part of the reason why we are currently the largest individually run Steelers news program anywhere here on YouTube with over 118,000 subscribers. So if you guys want to join us, I would greatly appreciate it, and of course catch us for next week's mailbag for your chance to get a question on the show. $5 super chat here from Tegan Stewart says, do you think that Dalen Everett could be moved to safety because of his athleticism? It's possible. He's got the speed to do it. Decent size as well. But, especially because I don't think he's going to be a great corner. I didn't love this pick. It was probably my least favorite pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Played a lot of football for that Georgia defense, but I think he's pretty heavy-footed, can be beaten man coverage pretty easily. I didn't love Dalen Everett, man. I had a day 3 grade on him, end up taking him there in the middle of round 3. So, yeah, if this team wants to play like a heavy man team, which it sounds like Patrick Graham wants to be, bringing in Jamel Dean, having Joey Porter Jr., I don't think Everett's going to be able to do that at an adequate level. Now, maybe I'm wrong. He's going to have time to develop behind really good man corners like Dean and Joey Porter Jr. and those guys, but he certainly has a ways to go. In my opinion, I just don't know if he has the athletic profile that projects to be a good man-to-man corner down the road. $2 from Trumper says, do you think that Eli Heidenreich will be RB1? Definitely not this year and probably not ever. I think that Jalen Moore and Rico Dowdle for sure will be a running back duo this year. And Heidenreich is going to be more of like a Swiss Army knife, all right? I know he gets compared to Christian McCaffrey all the time, but if you're expecting Christian McCaffrey from Eli Heidenreich, I think you're getting the expectations way out of proportion, okay? I think Heidenreich can be a good contributor on special teams. I think he could be a good scat back. I think that he could be, a solid contributor as like a gadget wide receiver. But like if you're expecting him to be Christian McCaffrey, who's like a one-of-one, truly special running back prospect, I think you're definitely setting yourself up for disappointment because this guy was a 7th-round pick. $2 from Nick McConnell says, what do you think what QB do you think Allar could mirror? Well, I think that, the pro comp that I gave him coming out was Joe Flacco. I think his arm talent is on a different level to Flacco because even though Flacco had a really good arm in terms of the strength and he had great touch on his deep ball, Allar reminds me a lot of that when he uncorks that deep ball down the sideline. He also throws with excellent touch, but when it comes to like throwing off platform and doing the arm angle stuff, like Joe Flacco didn't really do that when he was younger because no one was really asked to do that kind of stuff back then. So like I think Allar's slightly different to Flacco, but in terms of the caliber of quarterback, I think that that's a good goal to shoot for. And if you get a Joe Flacco-esque quarterback out of Drew Allar in round 3, of course, Flacco won a Super Bowl, and he was a franchise quarterback and put up some really good numbers for a long time. So if the Steelers get that level of quarterback here, I'd be pretty darn happy with it. But definitely a lot of upside here for Drew Allar if he can take the proper steps in his development. But he needs time to sit and fix his footwork, and hopefully the Steelers provide him that opportunity before throwing him into the fire. Now let me know what you guys think. Down there in the comments section, what is the percent chance of Drew Allar being Pittsburgh's Week 1 starting quarterback 3 years from now? Put it on a scale of 0, meaning no chance he's still the starting quarterback 3 years from now, to 100, meaning he's definitely going to be awesome. I really believe in him. Let me know what you guys think. A number between 0 and 100. While you guys answer that question, I want to tell you about our sponsor today here at Prize Picks, which is America's #1 sports picks app. With playoff basketball finally here, there's no better time to cash in with our friends at Prize Picks. The app is really easy to use. You just pick more than or less than on a few player stat projections and lock in your lineup. If you're a hoops guy, you can go with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, or three-pointers. If you're more of a seam head, you can choose hits, home runs, or strikeouts for baseball. You guys can even look ahead to next year's football season. Even the rookies are up there on the Prize Picks app now. I'm taking the less on Fernando Mendoza and Jeremiah Love, but I'm taking the more on Jordan Tyson here. This particular projection would get you $120 if you get it correct on a $20 entry fee. And if you guys want to copy this lineup, you guys can follow me at CSperry on Prize Picks with their new social feeds feature where you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with Prize Picks. Click the link down in the comments and description to download the app. And a big thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring Steelers Talk. $2 from Peter says, what can we expect to see from Caden Weegan? I think you can expect to see one hell of a return man right away. You're certainly getting that. He won the award for the best return man in college football 2 years in a row before he's joining the Steelers here. So a fantastic replacement for Calvin Austin III as a punt returner. I also think he'll be one of their kick returners as well this year. And, I think that he's got some nice upside as a receiver as well. I think this is part of the reason why the Steelers took him as early as they did. Obviously, he doesn't have a lot of production as a receiver at Iowa because they really never threw the football at Iowa. But this guy was awesome in the one-on-ones with the route running there at Shrine Bowl. Practices this year here in Frisco, Texas, was just cooking people. And this guy's got some serious explosion out of his breaks. So I think this guy might be a camp darling, might become a preseason darling, and might be, a fan favorite by the time we get to week 1, because I think he's going to be a hell of a preseason player for us. $5 from Marco Man. It says, where would you rank out wide receiver trio, talking about the Steelers' wide receiver trio, amongst the AFC? I think it's 3rd overall behind the Broncos and Bengals, maybe the Jags, depending on the Travis situation. Now, I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and compare the wide receiver trio here in Pittsburgh to these other teams, but I think what matters here, Marco Man, is that you have a competent wide receiver trio now. You didn't have that the last 2 years, all right? And you can certainly make an argument you haven't had it in multiple years because Allen Robinson, multiple years back when he still had Deontay and GP, certainly wasn't a good wide receiver 3 option. Like, this is the best trio of receivers that we have had in this offense in a long, long time. It's the best offensive play caller that we've had in a long, long time. I think that this offensive line is young and up and coming still. And then you put Aaron Rodgers into this mix. He was 14th in passer rating last year with the worst wide receiver room in football potentially. With this group, I think Aaron Rodgers, could get into that top 10 conversation in passer rating and have an even better season than he had last year, which I thought he had a better season than guys like Baker Mayfield last year, who is a younger guy that I think a lot of Steelers fans would swap Aaron Rodgers out for in a heartbeat. And maybe with the youth, you would do that. But Aaron Rodgers, I think, made the most of his situation last year with a terrible wide receiver room. And now you have competency here with a legit wide receiver trio that's complementary. Everybody can play inside or out in certain concepts. I'm so excited to see this wide receiver room, work. And where do they rank? I don't think it necessarily matters. I think what matters is this a good enough group to get more out of Aaron Rodgers this year? I think the answer to that question is absolutely yes. Now, before we answer the rest of your questions today, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you're a real one. The real ones and the sickos know that clicking that thumbs up icon helps out our channel tremendously. It tells the YouTube algorithm that Steelers fans are enjoying this content, that they should recommend it to new Steelers fans that haven't watched our show. So if you guys want to help us grow and get more subscribers and help us continue our growth here on the channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you click that thumbs up icon. $2 here from Tegan Stewart says, which draft selections will start day one? So there's a few that could, and I think there's a few that will in certain spots. Okay, I think that Jeremy Bernard will start day one as your wide receiver 3. I think Caden Weegan will start immediately as your kickoff and punt return man. And then I think Riley Nowakowski will be your starting fullback on day one. Okay, then there's some guys that I think could play right away. Max Ahanicher, if he plays really well in camp and earns the right tackle job, I think Troy Fautano will be asked to move over to the left side, and Dylan Cook becomes your swing tackle. But the possibility of Cook sticking at left tackle and Fautano at right, at least to start Max Ahanicher's career, is there. Then you got Jennings Dunker, who could be your starting left guard if he beats out Brock Hoffman. But it's certainly possible that transitioning from tackle to guard might prove to be, a little bit slower than maybe the Steelers would like, and Brock Hoffman is our starting left guard this year, right? So I think that those are probably the guys that have a realistic chance. I think Drew Allar is going to be a true sit-and-develop guy. Dalen Everett is a true sit-and-develop guy. Robert Spears-Jennings is a sit-and-develop guy. Rubio might have a little bit of a role as a backup nose tackle, but he won't see the field much. And Heidenreich, I think, will have an interesting role where he will play kind of all over the place, and they'll kind of scatter him in different spots where they see fit. He won't have a defined role, but he will play a little bit here in his first year, in my opinion, in these various little gadgety type of roles. $10 here from Hunter Dillman says, what's the long-term vision if Broderick rebounds and looks elite while Max also looks great? How do the Steelers maximize all of the offensive line talent if multiple young tackles prove starting caliber? Well, something that you could do is maybe move Fautano to left guard long term. That's something that he could do, even though I think Fautano's a better tackle than he is a guard. I don't know if he has the anchor in just this pure strength to play on the inside. I think he's more of a tackle. But I think that what probably happens here is that I think it's very unlikely, first of all, that Broderick Jones looks elite this year coming off that injury. I think at the very best he looks like an adequate starter. And if that happens, I think the Steelers probably let him walk in free agency, and they hope someone pays him enough where they get a good comp pick out of him. I mean, that's what happened with Dan Moore Jr., where he went to Tennessee. Steelers got an extra third-round pick out of him, right? So if Jones plays well, that's good news for the Steelers, where they can let him go. And then you've got Troy Fautano, who can play on the left side. He proved that in college. And then you got Ahanicher here, who's going to be your long-term starting right tackle. So I think that's probably the way that they go about it. You're hoping Jennings Dunker is going to be your future starting left guard. I don't think that they want to necessarily keep all three of these guys, especially because keeping Broderick Jones is going to involve a pretty hefty financial commitment. So I think that this will probably be Broderick's final season here in Pittsburgh, no matter what. I'm rooting for him, but I think that, especially with the draft pick of Ahanicher, they're going to stick with the two guys on rookie contracts heading into 2027 and beyond. So tell me what you guys think down there in the comment section. Is this year's Steelers team better than last year's? Give me a yes or no down there in the comment section. And let's just assume Aaron Rodgers is back this year. I think this team is unquestionably better than it was last year with the improvements in the coaching staff. I think the scheme will be a lot better on both sides. The wide receiver room has been fixed. That was the main thing holding this team back last year, in my opinion, along with the underperforming defense. But hopefully both of those things are fixed. And I think Aaron Rodgers, as a non-mobile pocket passer, can still shred defenses if receivers are open for him downfield. I think that that's going to happen this year for him. And I have a lot of optimism for this year's Pittsburgh Steelers team, guys. And at the end of the day, if Rodgers doesn't get the job done, at least you're doing right by Drew Allar by giving him an excellent mentor at the quarterback position, as well as Will Howard, by the way. But that'll be it for today's show, guys. Really do appreciate your guys' support. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you for all the questions on this week's mailbag. And, of course, make sure you join us every Thursday where we film these mailbags every single week. So greatly appreciate your guys' support. I'll see you guys next time. And until then, here we go, Steelers. 2 super chats, and then we're out of here. nearly a 2.5-hour live show, man. Like, you guys had some great questions, had some great discussion today. I appreciate you guys. Gamer Plush with a 5 says Art has the spine of a jellyfish, getting tired of the Rodgers. If anything, he has a strong spine. They've set this course where they're like, we want Aaron Rodgers, and they've stayed firm. You know what the jellyfish spine decision would have been? Oh no, our fans are criticizing us. Let's go get Kirk Cousins. Oh no, our fans are criticizing us. Let's go draft Ty Simpson. Oh no, our fans are criticizing us. We can't have that. That would be the weak move. The strong move is stand on business. We believe Aaron Rodgers is our guy this year, and we're gonna see this thing through. That's the strong decision. I appreciate you, Gamer Plush, but I disagree. I respectfully disagree. I think that, I like the fact that they are being strong in their convictions here. Like, would you rather have an organization that is strong in their convictions like this team is? Or would you rather have an organization that's like, oh no, our fans don't like the weight? Like, I feel like that is so much weaker than what they're doing. I don't know, man. Like, what do you think, Ponzi? Am I wrong here?
No, you're definitely not.
I know that the perception is,
you're letting a 42-year-old decide your team.
The Steelers are just bowing down to Rodgers.
I think, if you know your guy.
Well, like, if he's your guy.
You have your guy.
And he gives you the best chance, then why not?
Like, I understand.
It's not going to hurt your chances of winning this year. It's not like he's not going to be prepared. Like, what's the downside necessarily? Like, the downside is it's annoying. That's the downside.
I do think the downside is, and I don't think Rodgers would do this. I will say the likelihood has gone up in my opinion, but like
if he leaves,
you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, and listen, man. If Aaron Rodgers retires or if he signs somewhere else, I'll be the first one up here calling the Steelers fucking dumbasses and idiots for thinking that he was going to come back, because you don't do this move and you don't not pursue a quarterback this year, a veteran one, unless you're like pretty damn sure he's coming back. So they're betting a lot on him. So if they lose that bet, I will criticize them to high heaven, okay? But I think the chances of them losing this bet are so low that I'm not worried about them taking the bet at this point, okay? Like, with all the clues that we have, with Aaron Rodgers having weekly conversations with Mike McCarthy, all of this different stuff since March. Like, what? Like, what are they talking about? What did they have for dinner last night? No, they're talking about football. They're talking about the plan for this year. I mean, Mike McCarthy said today on Pittsburgh radio, they've been talking about how awesome of a final chapter this would be for them.
Like, it's just like openly.
Those are not the things you say to somebody if you're planning on saying, well, fuck you guys. Well, I'm retiring now.
Is it annoying? Yes. Of course it is.
But it's just Aaron Rodgers. Like, what is Aaron Rodgers' thing that he says? Oh, I'm attached to nothing and open to everything. That's what this is. Like, he wants to get to a certain point of the offseason, and he doesn't want to have to commit to anything, quote unquote, too early, because he doesn't want to sign a contract in March and then get to June and be like, I'm not really feeling playing this year. That's not what he wants to do.
Nope.
And frankly, he doesn't like the offseason program, so he probably views this as an excuse to not go. And frankly, I'm okay with that for a 22-year veteran in the NFL that's already got a decade plus banked in a Mike McCarthy offense. Like, is it the best leadership move in the world? No, but like, is it really going to affect his ability to lead this team when we get to September? No. Yeah. He's going to have 3 months with the team, working with his guys, getting ready for week 1. If he signs in early June, he's going to have a quarter of a year to get ready. Like, people talk about it like we're playing a game next month, and he still hasn't signed.
Guys, there's a long period
There's a long way to go before we get to week 1, man.
There's a long period to go before we get to preseason.
Rodgers in a brand new system, brand new offense with a new coordinator he's never worked with before and weapons he'd never thrown to before, threw 4 touchdowns in his first game as a Steeler.
I don't know, man. Like,
against the defense that had Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams at the time.
I don't know what you want, like, us to say up here, guys. Of like, Rodgers is clearly the best bet for the Steelers this year. That's guaranteed.
And he helps the young quarterbacks too.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I get like I'm frustrated. I'm sure Sperry's frustrated. We're all frustrated here.
Everyone's frustrated. But the question is, are you willing to sacrifice the football element of this thing because you're tired of waiting in fucking April? Like, are you willing to sacrifice September, October, November, December for April? I'm not. This is the offseason. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a future Hall of Famer. He's already got 10-plus years in this offense. Why? Like, is it an absolute necessity that he's on the team right now? No.
Preseason starts. The earliest it could start is August 13th. That is
Rodgers doesn't play in the preseason.
That's what I'm saying. It is 4 months from now, or about 3.5. Like, do you really want to say, oh, well, I'm tired of this. Let's move on.
Yeah, we have like 4 months until week 1.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the juncture where you say, no, thank you, Aaron.
If we're still in, like, where training camp's already started.
Well, for me, the cutoff point is mandatory minicamp.
Yeah.
Because every player is expected to be there. Okay? These players, like if Cam Hayward or TJ Watt or any of these guys didn't show up to voluntary minicamp or voluntary stuff or OTAs, they have the right to do that. They're voluntary workouts, right? But every player on the team is expected there to be there for mandatory, right?
Yep.
So, like, if Rodgers thinks he's so special that he doesn't have to be there for mandatory stuff, then that's the point where I'm like, okay, he might be losing the locker room a bit. We might just have to move on. But we're still over a month away from that point, guys. We still have at least a month where I'd be perfectly fine with Rodgers signing.
Yep.
And he's still going to be the best option for this team a month from today than he is right now. Just like he was the best option for this team a month ago on March 30th. And frankly, he was the best option for this team on February, whatever the final day of February is.
Yeah.
Like that has not changed, which is why the Steelers did not pursue Malik Willis. They did not pursue Kyler Murray. All right? They did not draft Ty Simpson in round 1. They drafted a developmental quarterback instead of one that was more ready to play right now, like Garrett Nussmeier or Ty Simpson. Why do you think they made these decisions? Because they have been getting heavy hints from Aaron Rodgers that he's coming back this year, and if you believe he is your best chance, I would have less respect for this organization if they went with somebody else at this point. Like, stand on business. Don't cower in the face of your fans that don't know as much football as you do.
Yep.
Like you guys are the ones running the football team. All right? And is it frustrating from the fans' perspective? 100%. Does it change the fact that Rodgers clearly gives this team the best chance for success both in the short term but also in the long term because he's setting the future up at quarterback up for success?
Nope.
Doesn't change that fact. He's still going to make like $15 to $19 million this year. I don't know exactly how much he'll make, but if he signs the tender, it'll be just $15.5. That is the best value contract for a quarterback in the National Football League this year, outside of the guys still on their rookie contracts, Jaden Daniels, Drake May.
Yep.
Why are we opposed to this? I don't get it. Because we went 10-7, won the division, and we lost in the first round of the playoffs?
It happened with the same shit all 10 years.
Like,
at least this gave you like some it wasn't, and I will say this.
Like, dude, like last year
the game wasn't as bad as it indicated.
It was on offense. The offense was really bad. The defense stepped up for a good 3 quarters.
It was a close game with 3 quarters. Or like in 3 quarters. I understand, but like that offense was just not built to win a playoff game against that Texans defense.
Yeah, it wasn't. No, it just wasn't. And now, guess what? I think they are.
Yeah, I think so.
I think if you play that same exact game against Houston this year at home, we win the division, we play them, and wild card weekend, we beat them.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy to say. Because the fact that CJ Stroud did all that.
Yep, I think we win. Because we have the offensive weaponry now that can actually challenge that defense.
And honestly, Sperry, maybe this is crazy for me to go take the next step. I don't even think it's a close game.
No, I think I think
because the thing is, CJ Stroud gave them the ball in their opposing territory so many times.
I know, but here's what I'll say. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. So I think it'll be close in that regard.
I don't know, man.
I still think the Steelers probably don't put up 30 on them.
No, I'm not saying that.
Or anything like that. Like I think it would be more like 24 to like 17 or 16 or something like that. But I think the Steelers could beat the Texans. Especially because CJ Stroud, if he plays like he did last year, like that's a pretty low bar to clear.
Like, the thing is that, like, that defense just was also just exhausted, too. And the fact is, they were on the field the majority of the game. And they still only allowed, like, what was it, 12 points, 14 points total?
God, I've kind of forgotten about that night because I want to, but
yeah,
but
like, it wasn't a lot of points they allowed.
Yeah, it was very low scoring up until the fourth
quarter. They had
quarter.
2 defensive touchdowns.
Yeah, you had the fumble touchdown, and then Rodgers had to start forcing shit, and he threw that pick 6, and it just snowballed from there. But I think we have the players this year on offense to potentially beat a Houston Texans at home in the playoffs.
It was 7-6.
Yeah, it was 7-6 in the fourth quarter.
And if you're telling me that you don't believe that defense would have played better if they had an offense that was just driving down the field,
yeah, and actually like moved the ball a little bit,
yeah, I don't know what you're asking of another team.
But Gamer Plush, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the $5. $2 from Bernard Nixon says, I think A-Rod is top 15. Well, I think so too. I think that's a perfectly fine take to have. Like, it feels like people think that Aaron Rodgers played as poorly statistically last year in every game as he played in that Houston game. When it's like he had certain stretches where he didn't play fantastic, but he also had stretches he played really good. And dude, you give him this wide receiver trio, and I think even Roman's going to be a contributor this year. I think this wide receiver room is the best we've had in years.
Yeah.
The offensive play calling is going to be the best that we've had in years. The defensive play calling, I think, will be the best and most modern it's been in years. You have a lot of talent on this team.
Yep.
I think that this defense could be top 5 this year, and I think this offense could be top 10. Who fits that description? The last 2 Super Bowl champions, okay? Seattle and Philly didn't have great quarterbacks. They had good quarterbacks, all right? But they had elite defenses, and they had awesome surrounding casts for their quarterbacks, and they had top 10 groups, all right? I'm not saying the Steelers are for sure going to be that, of course, okay, because there's only one team that wins the Super Bowl. But you're telling me the Steelers have no chance to take a step forward this year with the improvements that they've made to both the coaching staff and the personnel? Just because the quarterback's the same? Like, get out of here, man. I know the quarterback's the most important position, but like, there's 2 ways a quarterback plays better. Either they get better or the surrounding cast gets better. Obviously, Rodgers at 42, 43 is not going to get better at this point. All right, if anything, he's going to get worse. But you give him a better supporting cast than he had last year, the production can go up, and the production wasn't even that bad last year. And we're going to throw out that option for somebody that hasn't played a down in the NFL? I don't know, man. I don't know. I just think that the difference in the quality of QB1 possibles here is just a chasm. It's a chasm. Yeah. Noah says Allar is better than Howard. I think right now, if I had to play a game, I would pick Will Howard.
Yeah, just because he's been in the league for a year.
Yeah, he's been in the league in a year. He's got the.
But I would have a very short leash.
He's got the mentor. He's gotten the mentorship from Rodgers. He's seen how it's done, and I'm hoping that some of the footwork issues that he had coming out have been fixed because he was very much a heel clicker and a narrow base guy. I'm hoping that he's fixed some of those things, and I'm excited to see him play in the preseason. We haven't seen him. I'm excited to see what Will Howard does in the preseason this year. But I think in a year's time, after Allar has had that same mentorship from Rodgers, he's had the year to fix the footwork and all that different stuff. Allar's physical gifts are better than Howard's, in my opinion. All right, especially when it comes to the arm talent. Like Will Howard, I don't think, as some of the throws that Allar has thrown, man, I don't think Will Howard can think about completing in his wildest dreams. Quite frankly. Now, I think Howard probably, obviously with the year of development, all this different stuff, I think he'd be more ready to play right now. But give it a year, I think Allar's going to pass him. So if I'm a Will Howard fan and you want Howard to get his quote-unquote chance, I'd really be pulling for Rodgers to retire. It's a very low chance in my opinion, but I think if you want Howard to get a legitimate chance to be this team's starting quarterback, it's got to be this year. Because if Rodgers is here and Allar gets that year of development, I think Allar probably beats him out next year.
Yep.
Now, maybe he doesn't. Maybe Allar just doesn't get it, and he's like Justin Fields or one of these quarterbacks, or Trey Lance that just never gets it. Maybe that's the case, but I'd say the chances are lower next year than it would be for this year. And who knows, maybe Allar is just like this quick study that's like fixes his footwork like that, and he's ready to go day one. Like maybe that's what would happen. But I think right now Howard would be the better bet this year if Rodgers retires. $5 here from the Mikado says Steelers playing the media game. Rodgers just doesn't want to do minicamp, but they can't say that. They got a handshake deal just like last year. I actually disagree with this. I think Rodgers has very heavily implied that he's coming back. And he might have even told Mike McCarthy, if I had to make a decision today, I would come back. But I want to wait until this date, and I want to be open to the idea of retirement until this date. And the Steelers are fine with that. It's just an Aaron Rodgers thing. The Steelers feel like Rodgers is the best option, so they're going along with that plan. Okay? And McCarthy's okay with it because right now they're installing the offense. Aaron Rodgers already knows large swaths of this install. So it's not like he needs to uproot his Malibu offseason here to go to Pittsburgh and relearn stuff that he already knows, right? So McCarthy has said publicly he actually is fine with Aaron Rodgers not being at this portion of the offseason because he already knows this shit. So, I mean, it's close to the Mikado, but I don't think Rodgers has told them, I'm for sure coming. I think he's heavily implied it. I think maybe he's even told them, I'm really leaning towards coming back, but I want to remain open to the idea of retirement if I feel that way at this given point. Which, by the way, I don't think the Steelers used the UFA tender if they knew 100% that he was coming back, because there'd be no reason to. The only way you use that is if you acknowledge the possibility that he signed somewhere else. So that's what I would say about that. Is that it? One more. All right. It's been a great show. Gamer Plush says, apologies, Jack. Just tired of the media narrative. No, it's all. Don't apologize to me, man. Don't apologize to me. I appreciate your support. I'm tired of it too. All right, like I'm not trying to say that your frustration or any of this is unjustified. All right, but I think sometimes we got to be like a Jedi here, and you got to take your feelings out of it, and you got to just look at things. You just gotta look at things from a logical lens, okay? Aaron Rodgers clearly is the best value at the position. You're only going to pay him like $15.5 million this year, which is a steal for a good starting quarterback, which I believe Rodgers still is. Then he's going to be better this year because he's got better weapons. Then he's going to provide value for your younger quarterbacks, which, by the way, I would pay Aaron Rodgers $15 million this year to just coach up Drew Allar and teach him how to, do all these different things, how to have proper footwork and proper timing and how to read defenses. I think the $15 million to Aaron Rodgers is worth just the mentorship. But not only do you get the mentorship, you also get a damn good starting quarterback with a ton of playoff experience, which matters in the playoffs if you want to try and make a run this year. Like, everything lines up for Aaron Rodgers to be the best option for the Steelers this year. Is it frustrating that we're now going into May waiting for a decision? Absolutely. And hell, we might be waiting until early June for a decision this year, just like last year. But as long as he's there for mandatory minicamp and he is there for everything that every other player on this team is required to be there for, I'm fine with whenever he wants to sign. All right? We saw last year he's perfectly fine without an offseason program. So I'm not that worried about it at this point. But hey, give me 2 months here. If we get into July and he's not signed, I mean, at that point, it's like, all right, it's too long. It's too long. If we get past mandatory minicamp, all right, we got to move on. But that's where I'm at, Ponzi. Fantastic discussion, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We'll have our normal live show schedule next week, or at least that's the plan. We're going to be having 2 live shows next week like we usually do. But thank you guys so much for supporting us here. Without you guys, we would not be able to do what we do every single day. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for your support. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.